Hello, good evening. The World Cup is over. I am sorry that we had to start a little bit late. I was in Deal with the family and have just driven back. Kuva, how are you, sir? How are you?
Okay, I'm glad it's over as well. Get back to Spurs then.
We can get back to Spurs. I mean, look, before we do, we have to talk a tiny bit about what's just happened, right? Because
Bollocks that rubbish.
We've got to.
Right.
We will be getting David, Irish Hotspur, should be joining us. I don't know where he is at the moment. We might be getting Phil P on the show when he gets back from family. So we'll mix it up a bit tonight. There's no Sean and Pete because they're not feeling great. So maybe they'll join us in the chat. I'm not sure.
I think David Harris, he's probably just emailing every Frenchman he knows and rubbing him. He's still bitter about that Thierry Henry goal.
Absolutely. Look, a fair play. There's been a lot of people in the chat. The first thing that Kuva said to me backstage was, "Oh, I cannot believe the Pele slander." Big up, David. You all right?
Yeah, sorry about that. I got a camera there, and I had it set up during the week, and I was trying to figure out how to get it back to the webcam.
No worries, mate. No worries. I was due to be back for 7, but extra time of the World Cup, penalties. Then there was a car on fire on the A2, so it was all good fun. Look, we'll talk about the World Cup for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to Spurs. We've got a lot to talk about with Spurs. We're back this week. We're back. It's exciting. Kuva, the first thing you said to me backstage was the slander on Pele was unbelievable. What slander is it? Because I said that he's never done it in a European league. Is that what you were upset about?
Yeah, I mean, you play against who you're playing against. I mean, one of my favorite quotes of all time, I think it was from Puskás, and he was saying that the trick isn't to score 1,000 goals like Pele. The trick is to score 1 goal like Pele.
Yeah, true.
And you look at all the absolute world-class players that played against him in World Cups: Beckenbauer, Puskás, Di Stefano, Bobby Moore. They all elevate him way above anybody else of that era, and there was brilliance there.
Let me ask you a question about it though. So this is the same thing I put on when people talk to me about the Messi Ronaldo debate, for example. This is and Chuck Mbappe in there as well. This is what I put. This is what I put on Messi that the others don't have. This is for me, right? Is could Mbappe, could Ronaldo, and could Pele go and play in midfield the way Messi does and run the show and run the tournament? I'm not talking about as goal scorers. As goal scorers, we know they're all phenomenal. But to actually stop being the forward you are, drop deep and say, I'm going to dictate this. Can the others do that? There's a big question to start off with.
I'll go in an easy one with that. Pele and Maradona could. I don't see it from Ronaldo, not CR7.
Agreed.
Different. For me, he's one of the greatest out-and-out goal scorers is Ronaldo. But
Agreed.
The other two are just incredible footballers, genius.
Agreed. I mean, David, let me bring you in here. I'm just scrolling all the way back to 7:14 p.m. Nico, my man out there in Norway. Such a shame you shaved off your beard, Nico. If you don't follow Nico, please do on Instagram or whatever. A wonderful photographer. Thank you so much for the super chat. Didn't even want to say anything. He just wanted to contribute. So thank you. David, I'm guessing you watched what we've just witnessed, the World Cup final. God, it was a bit tense, wasn't it? It was all a bit
Best final I've ever seen. Best World Cup final ever, I would say. I think it had it all. I think it had a bit of had some magic moments. I think it had a bit of shithousery, and lots of goals. I think it absolutely had it all. Look, Argentina deserved winners on the day, if you ask me. I thought for 70 minutes they absolutely played well. For 80 minutes, they absolutely played France off the pitch. They were absolutely cruising. But, the one thing I will say about Argentina, if you want to get at them, long ball is the way to go. The long ball in is where they won the penalty, the long ball for their second goal. The Dutch also went long ball against them and nearly caught them as well. So for me, I think if you ever want to get Argentina, that's definitely the way to go going forward. But brilliant final, I have to say. Fair play to Lionel Messi.
It's strange, Coover. I don't think you watched it, but honestly, mate, leading up to 80 minutes, I don't know about you, David. I just thought, oh, this is Argentina cruising to this now.
Best final performance I've ever seen by any team ever.
Yeah, I thought they controlled everything from minute 1 to minute 80. France didn't have a shot for 80 minutes. Then get the penalty, which was then. Within 60 seconds, Mbappe decides he's going to turn into Mbappe again. Then it was just Argentina could have won it. France could have won it. Then Argentina sort of struggled. Won back the power struggle in the extra time. But I mean, guys, look, Leo Messi. Let's just quickly before we move on to Spurs. Leo Messi winning the World Cup. He's now won everything in football. Everything. There's nothing he hasn't won. Does this now mean that all of these silly... I mean, I don't think he needed to win it to prove that he's the greatest at the moment, or the greatest certainly of this era. Does this now put it to bed? I mean, what else can be thrown at the man, guys? What can be thrown at him?
Hasn't won anything at Spurs.
Yeah, he hasn't pulled on a Spurs jersey like Maradona.
So if you're listening, Nino, please come over, mate.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's on a serious note, David Coover, there can't be any accusations towards him now, can there, in terms of what he's achieved?
I think what settled it for me this tournament was glaringly obvious. Against Morocco, Ronaldo wanted to play up front. He still wants to be the man to get the goals. When he put balls that were put through to him, he just doesn't have that yard of extra pace that he used to have that takes him away, that gives him that extra time to think about his finish. And he was often caught, whereas you see the likes of Messi drop deep into midfield, knowing that he doesn't have the legs to run beyond or run 5-6 players, but he just gets on the ball, calms things down, moves it around, dictates the sort of how Argentina attack. And for me, I think the performance at this World Cup, I think that's the difference between Ronaldo and Messi. I think if Ronaldo were to drop deeper, I think he'd probably get a bit more longevity out of himself, but it doesn't look like he wants to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the other big differences between the two has always been the same. Messi is just an incredible team player. Ronaldo sometimes he'll throw a wobbly if his own team scores, but he didn't get it.
Yes.
It's a very, very sort of self-centered thing, which is fine as a striker, I suppose. But I mean, that's why I always view them different. Ronaldo, out and out striker. Messi, just a brilliant footballer all round.
And this comment made me laugh, guys. We'll move on to Spurs now, but I almost feel like if I sat here now and went, guys, imagine Messi for a year, people would go, yeah, he don't quite fit into the 3-4-3.
did this with Hoddle the other night, didn't we?
Yeah,
you'd find a way. You definitely would.
I've always said if I could just see Messi for 1 year, even at the age of 50, in a Spurs shirt, I'd be happy. He's just phenomenal. But guys, let's move on. First of all, before we do, the link into Spurs will be Romero. Fantastic achievement from Romero. I'm seeing lots of people put up their team of the tournament. He's in there alongside Vardiol as defender of the tournament. I thought he had a really good game today. And I mean, let me start with this thing, Kuva. Let me start with this. Is Romero winning the World Cup a good thing for Spurs, or does this just put him more in the market in terms of a market where people want top centre halves? I'm not trying to sell him off, but
it's a good thing for Spurs. You want to see players regarded as top quality. So if they go on to win the World Cup and you've got them in your team, this is a great thing. It's an advert for our club. I mean, I'm all for it. Let's see Emerson Royale bagging the. No, forget it. No, it's always been the same. You want your players to do well on just because it reflects on your club. It's like with England. Not bothered. I'm not being bothered about internationals for ages. But if Harry Kane's playing, I just want him to score goals.
Yeah.
Just the way it is.
I mean, just quickly, David, before I come to you on this, guys, there's 100 of you in the chat and only 28 likes. Come on, smash that like. You've just witnessed a great World Cup. Whoever you support, you must be happy. You've witnessed a great final. We're now back to Spurs. We're here for you all night to talk about football. David, you see what I'm saying, though? It's a great thing, Romero coming back, and hopefully, he comes back with all that confidence. But does that put him more in the shop window for the likes of a Real Madrid and Barcelona, etc., for these clubs that need centre-backs? Is that a worry?
Yeah, it's a worry because we're in need of a few ourselves. So we like last thing we want to do is get this guy in, and he doesn't last so long, and he's out the door off to Real Madrid because unfortunately it's just the nature of the game. When they come calling, you go. You know, you're not going to turn around and go, oh, do you know, hang on a minute, I'm going to sit here at Tottenham Hotspur. I'm going to stay here and see what happens here. They're just going to go. So for me, I think it is a worry, but it does reflect well on Spurs, the fact that we had the foresight to go and get this guy in. I think he's done well at Tottenham, and hopefully now that he's won the World Cup, he could just put that to the rest and get out in a Spurs jersey now for the second half of the season. A bit like what he done last season. Last season, he was interrupted with injuries, international duty, this, that, and the other. Second half of the season, he was absolutely phenomenal. So hopefully he can come back and give it his all up until the end of the season for us as well.
Absolutely. Kuba, just quickly before I move on to you, Azad, Hamid, thank you so much for the super chat. If anyone does want to add super chats, please do. Just a time for me to shamelessly, I say shamelessly, I think it's for a great cause. We are going to be doing the 24-hour stream for the British Heart Foundation, where there will be no super chats available. Everything will be donating directly to a PayPal giving account or a Just Giving account. That will be Friday the 13th through to Saturday the 14th, 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then the Spurs game is on the Sunday. So there'll be plenty of guests. These two sexy gentlemen on your screen, they will be joining me at some point throughout the stream. We'll have guests from Arsenal, looking forward to the Arsenal game, and there'll be giveaways and there'll be lots of stuff going on. So please join us for that. Azid, the greatest World Cup ever. I mean, look, you're going to always have debates because of the controversy surrounding it, but there's certainly been some great games, and thank you for the super chat. Kuva, back to the Romero piece and Spurs. It's good that we've got him, but doesn't it now show more than ever that get someone to play alongside this man? Get a centre-half. It opens up options to not only continue with the three at the back, but also then we've witnessed that Romero's won a World Cup playing in a back four and the Copa America playing in a back four alongside Otamendi. And I would like to think we can get an Otamendi, but younger. How important is that now for us to go and do that, Kuva?
Very important. I mean, all the way through history, so many examples at the club. Look at the difference between Toby Alderweireld at the club. Or should I say Jan Vertonghen, at the start of his spell at the club, playing well, bring in Toby, what a difference it makes. They both elevate their game because you play with quality alongside you raise your game. Gary Mabbott, club legend, put him in the squad one season with Richard Goff, and it was an incredible centre-back partnership. It just happens. It always does. You get the quality around players, you bring the best out of them. Some players are there, can be fairly average by themselves, but they know how to get the best out of their partner. I think with Romero, he is a risk taker. He needs that sort of steady Eddie, calming influence, one who reads the game, intelligent centre back with him. That's not Dyer. That's not Sanchez.
Sure.
Sorry.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, it was just strange. It's strange, isn't it? I mean, you feel like it's there for all to see. I think getting that centre back, David, again, it opens up the options. You know, a lot of what is said about Spurs at the moment is, okay, well, we won't move away from wing backs because that's how he plays, and we haven't got the personnel to play for. But one top centre half could really change the direction and the dynamism of this football team, couldn't it?
No, it really could. Look, for me, I think, look, I don't want to keep harping on about it. I don't want to keep, putting a dagger in when the wound is open. But Dyer, he's just not good enough. He's prone to switching off, sloppy errors, sloppy on the ball at times. Sometimes misjudges, misreads. There's a lot of flaws to his game. And for me, I agree with Koo. I think if you're bringing in someone like Romero, Romero's someone who, look, he's a savage, isn't he? But he leads by example on the pitch. Whereas what you need beside him is, and what that defence needs is someone that's going to come in and be vocal. Like some people tell me Dyer's a leader, Dyer's vocal. But what language? I mean, pick any language. It doesn't matter who's beside him. He can't communicate with them. It doesn't matter what language they speak. And I think we're in an era now where people are saying, I hear about Dyer, but he speaks all these languages. It's great for all these players in and around them. And it's kind of like, I'm sorry, but multi-bilingual doesn't make you a leader. There's the difference between speaking different languages and being a leader. Being able to read the game, being able to command respect from people around you. You know, if you see a player going and you can see the danger, you say, no, hold on, sit in beside me so that we don't get caught the way we do sometimes. So for me, look, I think we definitely... I actually don't think we're too far away from having a really good product on the football pitch. I think when I look at the first half of the season, yeah, we've had a lot of injuries, but I've always said this at Tottenham. We score goals, but lately, since Toby and Jan's partnership is finished, we have struggled to keep them out. We concede a lot of goals. And for me, I just think if you bring in that one centre-back, maybe bring in one right wing back and probably maybe that one creative player. I think we're 2-3 players away from really, really pushing on forward and probably hopefully getting back to where we were on the pitch, being in and around the silverware. And once you're in and around, you always got a chance.
Absolutely. And just quickly, Kuva, before I come to you, Rooksy Pop, thank you so much for the super chat. Asking if I'm excited for Conte Ball. I don't think I'm quite ready for the excitement, but I'm hoping...
Do you know the way? So you talk about the centre back, you talk about the right wing back and the creative player. If you think Tottenham got them in, do you think Conte's style of play would look a lot better?
I think it would look better for sure. I think one of my questions about it has always been, well, if that's what's needed, how has that not been the first thing we've gone and done under Conte? That was the big thing for me. Like you said, we will score goals. And that's why when at the beginning of the season, and Kuva was on many shows with me where people are going, oh, so you think Spurs are shit? And I said, no. I think we'll finish fourth purely because we do have Kane, Son, Kulusevski. So I'm not doubting it going that way. And that was why I always said the whole paying 60 million for a Richarlison made no sense to me if that's your big signing when you need a centre-back to play with Romero and the right wing-back. But look, guys, I want to move on to this, right? Still in keeping with centre-backs. Now, this is a funny one, a terrible one, or a bit of a left field one, depending on your opinion of this player. So, Sean brought it up yesterday.
I thought you were going to say Sanchez, Dyer, and Davis.
Yes,
that's describing the three.
It's exactly what I was going to say. And please smash that like button. Still only 37 likes, 140 of you in the stream. Come on, guys. And we're picking up some speed. Harry Maguire, right, is a name that I think when I first saw it a few weeks back, I was like, really? Come on, that's nothing in that. Seems to have gathered a bit of pace. Some people are putting, well, hang on, he'd be brilliant for us in both penalty boxes for a team that's very good at set pieces now. He'd be good in our box. We haven't got anyone who's really good in the air. Can anyone make an argument for why Harry Maguire would be a good signing? And would you be happy to see him at Tottenham? Kuva, let me start with you on that one. Harry Maguire, go.
Yeah, okay. To be fair to him, when he plays really badly, he's horrendous to watch. He really is. You think, what a pathetic player. We want nothing to do with him. But he is capable of playing very, very well at times as well. If he can find a way, manage to bring the consistency levels out of him, fitting into a system that suits him, he's a dominant player. He really does command his own box. You get crosses and things that we've been vulnerable to, or people just getting the ball in generally.
Yeah,
his forehead's about as big as a cinema screen. So he'll always get on the end of something and head it away. It's one thing Dyer never does. For such a big bloke, he does not dominate aerially. It's baffling. Yeah. He's like what you'd say. He's almost one of the poorest ones of the headers of the ball, unless it's a free header. But Maguire, different kettle of fish altogether. I think if you did bring in a Maguire and we got somebody with genuine pace on the left side, it wouldn't be a bad balance necessarily. It's just, for me, well, he's good on the ball as well. He does take the ball forward quite well. I think he gets slammed a lot because of the mistakes. A lot of players get that though. Pick out a movie star sort of style cock up by him, and it gets shown for ages, and everybody assumes that's what he does all the time, which simply isn't true. However, he's had a bit of a mare at Man United, hasn't he? So I don't know where to really go with it. If you look at the consistent player at Leicester,
Sean has risen from his deathbed as he heard me mention Harry Maguire. Just quickly before I come to you, David, to talk about Harry Maguire. Welcome, Sean. And
hi guys.
Azad, I'm not going to ignore this question. I'm going to save it for a bit later, mate, just so that we can continue the Maguire conversation. So I'll come back to this. Thank you for the super chat. I'll thank you again a bit later when we get back to it. But this will be a conversation that stirs up all sorts of emotions within our fan base. So I'll come back to it. David, I turn around to you January the 5th, January the 3rd and go, David, I don't know if you've seen Sky Sports News, but we've just signed Harry Maguire for 50 million and he's going to play for Spurs and blah, blah, blah. How do you feel?
Look, I know some people aren't going to like what I have to say, but here's my genuine opinion on it.
Go for it.
For me, I think when you look at our weaknesses, corners into the box, crosses into the box, free kicks into the box, nobody there that is that first man to go win it. Slabhead can do that. He can also do well for us in the other box. You know, you can like imagine Gio with that guy. I mean, that's probably his wet dream. If his wife probably asked him what he wants for Christmas, he said Slabhead. You know the amount of routines he can set up around him. He's already got 4,000. It's insane. But for me as well, look, this is a player that I think if you just inject a bit of confidence into him, I think you could get him back to the player he was at Leicester. I think, look, he's similar in mobility-wise towards Eric Dyer, but I do think he's better in the air. I think he's better on the ball than Eric Dyer as well. I think he's not afraid to run with it if he needs to run with it. He can ping a pass. I think he's a lot quicker on the ball. Sometimes Dyer is standing there taking 8-9 touches before he moves it on, lets everybody else get marked. I just don't think Eric Dyer has the brain capacity, if I'm being honest. I think Maguire has a better footballing brain than Eric Dyer as well. Mm-hmm. And I think there's actually a lot of pluses to bringing in Maguire. And I know a lot of people probably throw their arms up in the air and go, oh, this guy at United has been absolutely crap, this, that, and the other. But there's been a lot of players that have gone to United down the last over the last 5-6 years that have left and gone on to have good careers. We all like, if people look into what's happening at United, listen to Ronaldo interview, everything else that other players have come out and said about what's been going on there. There's reasons all around it why players aren't succeeding. And if you look at what Conte done too, I don't necessarily agree with it. I never rated him anyway, but he got a bit out of Dyer, he got a bit out of Davies. Imagine what you could get out of Maguire. Plus, this guy starts over Eric Dyer in the England team. It tells you everything you need to know. For me, I think there's a lot of benefits of bringing him in here. I wouldn't be throwing my ties out the pram if we signed them, to be honest.
So, Sean, let me move over to you. Look, again, guys, people in the chat, I'm just asking a question, right? I've not once said I want Harry Maguire. I'm just asking a question here. Sean, the overwhelming feeling in the chat is absolutely not. We don't want Harry Maguire. He's another Eric Dyer. But like David said, there's some good points in there for him. He's brilliant in the air. What's your feelings? And yeah. I'll put a spin on this. If we were to sign Maguire, would it not again show that our scouting isn't very good? The fact that we've not been able to go out and get a better centre back than Eric Dyer for. I'm guessing he'll be 50 million. I have no way of knowing that. I don't know. But what do you make of all this?
Yeah, listen, I put it out there on my video when it was a couple of days ago, and I said, like, I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this in the comments. Savva, it was up for like 30 minutes, and I had like 50 or 60 comments going like, "You off your rocker, Butler. Yeah. What are you talking about?" But like Dave, like I feel the same. I said it on the video. Like, I think he gets you if Perisic stays fit. Perisic got 7 assists already, finding ways to get other players other than Harry Kane and Sonny contributing to goals. We've had Clement Longley getting goals. We've had Ben Davies getting a couple of goals, all from the air. Richarlison is fairly strong in the air. Like maybe having Harry Maguire in, I think he could legit bring in possibly more goals than Richarlison between now and the end of the season. If we
I don't doubt that. But defensively, I don't doubt it. In another team's penalty area, I've never doubted Harry Maguire. In the last couple of tournaments we've seen, he can be good in the air.
Yeah.
But let's bring this back to the basics. Let's bring this back to what
can he defend well enough? Is he good enough?
bringing him into, it's not like you're bringing him in to play alongside Romero with an undercut or Hincapi, all these players that are good. We're bringing him in.
You can do both, though. You can do, on the video I suggested, like, he's not my first choice. He's not my second, third, fourth, fifth choice. He's right down the list. There's enough valuation. I think if you could get him for like 25, 30 million, I think it makes sense, but not as the only defensive person you sign. If you go and buy him and then you go and get alongside that whoever, my first choice now, Guardiola's not going to happen, then Antonio Silva or an Undica or someone a bit younger, Hincapi, whatever, right? Someone that can come in and can fill the gap with the pace, fill the gap with with the age deficit. And then you have Maguire that comes in and plays in rotation or replaces one of either Sanchez or Eric Dyer or Ben Davies, whatever, because he can play on the left or he can play in the middle of a three. And I think he's protected a little bit by playing in a back three. For England, he plays really well in a back three, doesn't play well in a back four. That obviously would put... It doesn't make any sense buying him if Conte's future isn't secured. If Conte's hanging around, then I think it makes more sense because the back three is going to be more of a constant.
Well, this is what I was going to move on to. And guys, just for a chat, I'll put it out there. I think everyone knows, I think the panel will know that I've got no interest in seeing Harry Maguire in a Tottenham shirt in any way, shape or form. I just feel that where we are, I feel like you could take a risk on a player like Maguire if you are defensively solid and you've got other players there and, okay, it doesn't work, we've got this bloke. I just think for an area of the pitch, Kuva, that is so important now. The next centre-back we sign is so important. We're bringing in a bloke that for 2 years now at United has looked, I'm going to be polite, ropey, would be my polite way of saying it. If it doesn't go right, I mean, the knives and daggers will be out. So I know all transfers are a risk, but Kuva, this would be a huge risk. And what if Conte does go and now we're back to playing a back two? Do you want him in a back two?
No, I mean, I don't want him. You literally asking me to pick the bones out of it, try and get something worthwhile about him. So I did that. But I mean, my overall opinion of him is he's gash. I wouldn't want him at the club.
But also, but Kuv, remember, I know this season's been a little bit different, but last season we barely conceded unless we conceded from the air. Right, we gave away those 2 sloppy goals against Brighton. Wolverhampton Wanderers. If it wasn't a howler from a player, from a goalkeeper or something like that, we were generally conceding from the air because, like Dave says, Eric Dyer's no good in the air. Ben Davies is bang average. Our best defensive header of the ball. In fact, I'd go as far to say the best header of the ball.
No, don't.
I'm going to say it. It's Emerson Royale. And you know what? Like, one of the only reasons why I've watched and I've admired Jed Spence of late is because he looks like he's competent in the air relative to everybody else in our team. Our defensive frailties, offensively and defensively, in the air, are surrounded by aerial weakness, and I feel
it's been like that. It's been like that since Jose Mourinho, Sean. Balls into the box, not being able to deal with it, aerial balls in. Look at the Brentford game last year on the end of the running. All they done was bombard us with long balls. We couldn't cope with it, and you're going to expect lower league teams to do that, and that's why we see some of the results we see, because just the defensive frailties. But we also have to take into account that we also have to look at our English quota. Now, I know I'm not... Eric Dyer, I don't think counts as English for the Premier League, if I'm correct. But somewhere along the line, we also have to look at that and start bringing in some English players. Because for me, I think we have some of the worst English players about that we use to fill out our squad to meet that quota. So, for me, I do think you have to start looking at some of these English players. And that's why I think this rumour might gather a bit more pace.
I think that's the one thing England are really short on at the moment, though, isn't it? Quality defenders. We're blessed with an attacking talent at the moment. For me, there's a couple of things that does work in favour of him coming as well that we haven't discussed so far. One, we're not playing the high defensive line, so he's not going to be like stuck on the halfway line getting skinned for pace. And he's 20 yards behind somebody who bangs in a goal past Hugo. So if he's playing a lot of the game back on the edge of the box, that's where you want a big lump like that. You don't want him running around too much. You want him sort of mobile, semi-mobile fortress at the back there. I think it's if Conte is staying, we could possibly get it to work. But I think at the end of the day, there's 2 words you need to say, and then you can dismiss all of this bullshit transfer to start with. You just say Alderweireld, Vertonghen. Are we really talking about a defender now because he can head a ball? Bollocks.
I mean, it's a big gap in our like if you're looking at other teams, look at us and go, where are Tottenham weak? They're weak in the air.
Is true, but when, and even on this show, and whenever I watch shows, I keep being told that the reason why Conte's system isn't as fluid and doesn't really work as well is because we can't play out from the back. So for me, surely the first centre back you bring into the club needs to be someone comfortable on the ball, an undercart, a Hincapi.
Do you not think Maguire's comfortable on the ball, though? I think he is.
I think when he's got time in international football, I think he, like people who say, oh, he's had a good World Cup and he had a good Euros, he's not facing top forwards. What I've seen against Maguire this tournament, I don't think he's had to face a decent forward until he faced Giroud, who got right in front of him, bang, goal. And I just worry that when I watch him for Man U week in, week out, not religiously watching Man U, but you know what I mean. Any game you watch Man U on the TV, he just looks like a cart horse. And I just feel like people were getting so quickly behind him that we're back to square one. But that's only me.
I think that's why you need to have, if you're going to have Romero on the right, even if, and I'll take the point about what Borodin's saying here about the salary thing. You know, you'd hope if you can convince him to leave. I think he's so disliked at Manchester United by the club. A lot of his teammates get frustrated with him. I think the fans have had enough. I think that, you know, any escape out of there to a half decent team, I think he would probably, you'd hope if he's a smart guy, he'd take the backward step to resurrect his career. And I think he could do that at a team like Tottenham. Listen, I'm not advocating for it as, like, I've said it 1,000 times. Definitely not first choice. There's other players. But I think it could work as long as you brought in somebody else to play alongside him on the other side of Romero that would that has the pace. So that if he does get caught out, you know, with a bit of bad pace, just like Eric Dyer can do, you know, you could have Romero coming back one side, or you could have the other guy on whoever that is, whether it's Hincapi, whether it's Indica, whether it's, for me, Antonio Silva. I think if you got both of them, I think it makes sense because you need to replace Sanchez and one of Dyer or Davies anyway. Tanganga maybe can hang around, I don't know, but you do need to replace
Lenglet as well because he's only on loan for
sorry, you're right, 100%, yeah, and Lenglet as well.
Just to clarify, you're saying it will work for him if he's going to a half decent team. In that case, he's definitely coming.
I just feel that I just feel that this is completely the wrong time. I feel like the risk of buying a player that for 2 years, I'm being polite here, for 2 years, he's been getting pelters, you know. He's only playing for England, let's be really, really honest, because Southgate can't let his favourites go. He can't. You know, he'll have Mount, Sterling and Henderson and Maguire in the team until they're 52. I just worry that if he is the only centre-back, I'm not saying he's coming in, but if he was the only centre-back to come in, I just worry that...
Yeah, there'd be problems if there was the only one, for sure.
Yeah. Like you said, Sean, if you've got Romero, the player on the left, if Maguire's going in the middle, the player on the left has to be rapid.
Yeah.
It has to be a player that can get about the park, but I just can't see a scenario in which this is good for Tottenham. But look, guys, there's other centre-backs out there. Lots of people putting in the chat, players like Hincapi, who played for Ecuador during this tournament, who looked really, really good. You've got Undercar that apparently is...
He got smashed, though. Hincapi looked like a little schoolboy against one of the African teams. I forget which team it was. Was it Ghana or was it...
Ghana.
Was it Ghana? And he got made
forwards full.
He got thrown about like a packet of cigarettes in a prison, and I was like, I don't know if this.
True, but I mean, in general, surely the players we want, they've got to be good on the ball, right? We need some players that are comfortable on the ball that can grow into that role as well. Hincapi, I believe, is 20. You've got Undercar, who's 22, 23. That apparently them lot down the road are tying up a deal with. I don't know how true that is. You've got English centre-halves, if we want to look. Tomori. I'm not saying we could get him from Milan yet. Guehi at Palace. I'd like to think we're a big enough club that we could go to Crystal Palace and go, what do you want for him?
Would Guehi down the left of a 3, would he?
I mean, he plays in a 2. I want players that can play in a 3 or a 2.
But is he left? He's left-footed though.
I believe so. I believe
good
so.
Good quality defender can play in both. Can play in a 3 or a 2.
Yeah.
You know.
Agreed.
Look at United, for example. Maguire in the team struggling. Stick Varane alongside Martinez. Totally different story because they're intelligent players.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Just quickly before we carry on, Pete from North London isn't very well, but he's managed to find his wallet, which is lovely to see. So thanks for that, Pete. He said he's ideal because we only score from set pieces.
If he was to get those 8 goals, though, mate, or 7 goals a season, it doesn't that pay for any? Like if he makes a couple of mistakes, but he scores you 7-8 goals from a centre back position. I know it's not what he's bought for, but
don't do it for me. No. For me, I don't want my centre back. My centre back scoring goals should be a bonus.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be to eradicate what they do at this end. But look, what will be. If Conte buys him, it's on Conte's head, right? If Conte signs the contract, buys Maguire, then. Yeah. It's like we said before. We'll talk about Conte and the contract in a little bit. But are there any other centre halves, guys? I mean, I've chucked Guehi out there because I think that, or Anderson, I think Crystal Palace are very well organised. Both playing the back 2, do a good job. Are there any other centre halves? We talked about Undercar,
Milenkovic from Fiorentina,
Milenkovic.
He'd be a replacement for Harry, but he'd be different to Harry Maguire. He'd be playing in the middle of a back 3. He's another magnet in the air, So I think most fans nowadays, with Google so handy and things like that, you will be able to put together a list of players you would imagine the club can get hold of pretty easily. Decent centre backs. There's just so many. We missed out on the likes of Sven Botman. I thought that was a tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, the price Newcastle paid for him was outrageously low.
Yeah.
What a good player.
He would have fitted lovely on the left as well, Coover.
Yeah, exactly. Or centre as well. It's dominant in the air. He's about 8 foot, isn't he?
He's brilliant on the ball as well.
There are a lot of players out there like that. That just perhaps they're just that little level of below the sort of superstar status that people are looking for. Yeah. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be that status. They just have to be better than Dyer and Davies. That's surely not that difficult to do, is it?
But then saying that, Coover, should the benchmark, guys, should the benchmark be that we just want better than Dyer and Davies? Or should it be we're not just looking for a bit better, we're looking for, right, Dyer and Davies are here. We don't want that. We want...
That's the approach that fans are taking towards Denzel Dumfries. Like, who will go, he's so much better than Emerson Royale. Yeah, but he ain't that good.
Right, okay.
Everyone's better than Emerson Royale.
This is the thing. Don't get me wrong, right? This is the thing. It's, do we want players that are just a bit better than what we've got, or do we want to go to the next level? Now, I'm not talking about Vardiol. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form Spurs outbid any of the top clubs for a Vardiol. But like we just said there, Milenkovic being one, Kim Min-jae went, Botman, Hincapi, Undercar. There's centre halves out there, right? I just feel like it will be a bit. I don't want to say late. No, I do want to say lazy. I feel it will be a bit lazy that we go, right, we've scouted the world. I'll tell you what, he's been shit for 2 years down at Man United. Let's sign him. I just feel it'll be really lazy, David. Would that be harsh?
No, look, first of all, we're in the middle of rebuilding our scouting network. Now, I presume we should still have eyes all across the world anyway. But no, look, I do believe we should be aiming for the very best we can get in that position. But I think they are winning. I think they look at Maguire. I think they look at maybe some of our weaknesses, and I think they look at them and go, look, this is a guy that we think we can get in without having to enter into a battle with the likes of a Real Madrid or a Man City or a Liverpool or something like that. Because as soon as they enter the race, they're gone. I think they look at this guy and I think they probably think, yeah, this is a guy that we can get here without being really challenged for him. And I think it's a guy that they think they can work with. But look, you're talking, there's De Vrij, his contract there, he can go on a free 1st of January. Maybe instead of tying him up for a free contract, you could probably put in a cheeky 10-15 million bid, take him over now. Bastoni's contract is coming up at Inter still. Skriniar still looks like he's been touted for a move. So if you look at Inter, they're obviously not going to sell all three, but one of them's going to go. So for me, why can't you go over there and maybe get one of them out, especially with Morata leaving because of the constraints they have to work under? Inter need a bit of money, So, look,
who's the most likely, David? Out of those three at Inter, realistically, I know everyone will just go, oh, Bastoni, but realistically, who's the one that we're getting out of Inter Milan if we do?
Oh, well, you got to say De Vrij because I think he's on a free this January, so he's probably the most attainable, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than letting go on a free, you would like to think Inter, if a bid came in, they'd probably have to entertain it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there anyone else, Sean, in the Premier League that we could look at? Because what I would like to see us do more is flex our muscles. You know the way, like, if Man United, City, Liverpool, if they see a player a bit lower down, like they did with Van Dijk, and they go, bang, we'll have you. I'd love to see us do that a bit more. Are there any centre-backs lower down? Maybe Saiz of Wolves, for example.
Yeah.
Joachim Andersen. Is there anyone else that you would think across the Premier League that we should be looking at and getting?
Yeah, there's... I never used to like him. I'll be honest. I never used to like him. And then I got told... But the few times that I've only ever seen him, he looks really clumsy, but actually he's a really solid player. And that's that Salisu from Southampton. And the more I look at him now, I do think that he's a massive lump of a guy. He's super strong. I still think he's got a mistake in him. I still think he's clumsy and can give away too many fouls. And the reason why I set my heart on that idea was after I see him get sent off against us last season. But
what about I actually think he's up, Sean? Bella Ketchup. Do you think he's any better?
Who? I think he's a good player.
Who?
Bottle of ketchup. He's a very good young player. I'd like us to sign. If we sign a player like that, I want a player like De Vrij to come in alongside him with that experience. Exactly. That for me, you'd have De Vrij at his age. Then you got Romero, who's now an experienced World Cup winner, and then Bottle of ketchup. I think he is a very good player. Same as this guy. I mean, I just want to quickly talk about these two guys. So we didn't get Tarkowski, but what about just for stability? What about Connor Cody playing in a back three? He's a leader. He's a talker. I don't see him making mistake after mistake after mistake, but a steady guy that could come in and play alongside Romero and De Vrij, for example.
Is he on loan at Everton or did he move permanently?
He's on loan. That's what I mean. It doesn't have to be the big. I know he's not Coover. Sorry, guys. I know he's not the glamorous, sexy name that everyone wants. But I looked at Everton getting Cody and Tarkowski, and I thought they both walk into our back three. Like, why have we not got one on a free and one on loan? So would you take either of those two?
I would. Connor Cody, nothing wrong with him. Very steady player. But that's first and foremost central defence. You want to have somebody that's steady there, especially when you got Romero taking the risks on one side. You need somebody who's been a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more covering with what they're looking at, making sure they're keeping their position. He fits the role. He's very underrated player, I think.
Is Maguire better than Connor Cody though?
Different. I think.
How much would Cody cost? You think though?
Well, if Wolves were allowing him to go on loan to Everton, I can't see that they could then charge the earth. The thing for me, I look at it like this with centre-halves. And I'm not saying, by the way, just Connor Cody. I'd want another centre-half. I'm talking about if we're looking for a fix for a period of time, this guy, I don't remember glaring mistakes from him. I don't remember it. Like, from watching Wolves for all these years, I just feel like he's a constant talker, telling people where to be, leadership. I just feel like
Wolves don't concede very many goals, do they? Like they're
sensible would be the word for me, Sean, on a signing like that. It doesn't always have to be the next big sexy name coming across European football. Would you take him, Sean?
Yeah, listen, I'd take a lot. There's a hell of a lot of players out there. I'd take in order of priority. He's not up the top end. You know, I still think that for me, players like De Vrij, you mentioned him already. I've been mentioning him for months. We all have. He makes the most sense. He's going to be cheap. I think he brings in the leadership. I think he brings in the stability and the ability to communicate really well. I genuinely think he's flown under the radar so much because of his name or his similar namesake. De Ligt gets all the plaudits out of the Dutch back, but from the old Ajax team. De Ligt went off cross to Juve, now at Bayern Munich, and I think that De Vrij has kind of flown under the radar a little bit. I think he'd be perfect. He'd be my number one choice in terms of value for money. There's other players out there which obviously I'd love more, but are just unrealistic, like a Skriniar, like a Gvardiol, whatever. But If you could get De Vrij and then go and pinch somebody else on the left, a young, fast, talented player, then I think you're done, and you can put the Harry Maguire story to bed. But if you come down the likes of reality, Connor Cody, if he was signed, I'd have absolutely no problem with that. And I think that as long as we sign somebody else alongside him, then I think he would be.
What happened to
improve us?
What happened to Max Kilman? Talking about Wolves, because when he first came up to the scene, he looked brilliant.
Great player.
He looks decent.
Yeah.
I like Saiss at Wolves as well. Just quickly, I just want to address someone in the chat. Seb, listen, when you're saying Savva having a laugh, Connor Cody, where is the ambition? Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is, Seb, I'd said I'd have a Cody, but I'd want someone alongside him as well. I believe that this football club needs 2 centre halves, not 1. I think we need 2 to play alongside Romero for me. Right. And then you've got Dyer and Davis as your backups. And then Rodon, Sanchez, Tanganga, they can all move on to pastures new. Answer me this question, Seb. Give me realistic names. Don't give me don't talk to me about Vardy. Pointless. The moment they mention 80 million and 400 grand a week, he's not a Tottenham player. So, Seb, give me 5 realistic players that are better than Connor Cody that we will realistically be able to get. And then I'll readdress your comments. Sorry, Cougar.
I think that's the key point to it, isn't it? Realism.
Right.
I was just going to say, Evie might like you guys after all with the realism.
Yeah. Wages alone, you just forget it on a lot of players. That's why I don't think Maguire will happen. He's on 200k a week at Man United, something like that. Yes, it's going to be something approaching that. We're not going to be paying that for him. I just don't see it. Realistic. Like I said, they're looking around the Premiership. Max Kilman still come out 2 at Wolves alone. I'll get back to my favourites again. Leicester. Where's Wayne? He's usually here if I mention Leicester players.
He'll be in there.
New player this season. Wout Faz looks brilliant to me. Looks like another Romero. Really
I
aggressive.
couldn't believe Kuva. He didn't play it like in the World Cup. Belgium still continued to play. Vertonghen and Alderweireld were about 700 between them, and there was no place for I might be butchering his name, but I think it's Fayez. But again, my question will be this, Kuva: How are Leicester scouting a player like that for what I think it was 16, 18 million? That's what I want to see from our scouting network. And it doesn't have to be the sexy name again, does it? It doesn't have to be, because
they got a plan and they stick to it.
Yeah,
they've got great scouts as well, haven't they? They've proven tried and tested.
And they don't start wondering about, there's somebody at Real Madrid start drooling, thinking, oh, we could try and get them. They just go, nope, forget that. We'll look in the bucket below that and get the best out of that and bring them on and hope to develop them. And then give them time to develop so they turn into great players. It's another thing we don't do. As soon as they have a bad game, they're out. The fans are on the back, and that's it.
It needs to be Kuva, doesn't it? Surely, the centre halves that come in now, it needs to be. We need to settle. Like if you look at a lot of the teams, you know their best back 4 or 5. I feel like we've got to get to that stage where we go, this is our back 5. If anyone else comes in, we know they're in rotation, and that for me, I don't think it can be another. I don't think it can be another a Rodon, for example. I don't want to see us going and signing a player from Swansea. But is this going to happen?
It's what I always say about the team, though. As far as I'm concerned, if I was the manager, I want to see 11 intelligent players with technically sound and ability to read the game and just get them out there and play. You can coach the rest into them. You can get them to gel as a team in some form. As long as they got that level of footballing intelligence and some technical ability and a will to win, that's it. You can do something with that. Then you add the genius if you can get hold of it. Then you have the flair and the ones that can win you games out of nothing. But start with the basics. Just get a team that can play football together, can pass the ball around accurately, don't fret about it when put under pressure, know how to move into spaces. It's there. It's coachable. Just get some decent, intelligent players in. Emerson Royale is not that.
Well, yeah, I think we completely agree there. Guys, is there anything else on centre-backs before we move on to our favoured right wing-back position and some questions and comments from the chat? anything else at centre back you'd like to see? Anything stand out?
What about maybe a Benjamin Pavard from Bayern Munich? They've got Upamecano, they've got the lit there. I think he might fancy a move to Tottenham if we put in a big player. You could presume he could play right wing back, play right back for France. He's a natural centre back, so he can play in the back line. He can also play on the right side of the back three for Romero. Someone like him would, for me, I think you could possibly look at bringing him in.
Yeah, I think Man United are going after him, aren't they?
Oh, are they? And that's that done.
Yeah, they're bringing him in to replace Harry Maguire, who's coming to Tottenham.
Harry Maguire's coming to Spurs. They're getting Benjamin Pavard. But again, this is the thing, guys, right? And as much as, look, I've criticised Spurs for, where's that ambition, etc. At the same time, we still have to be so realistic about what model we're going to work with. I would love it for Daniel Levy to go, right, sod it, next 3 or 4 top players, give them 400, 500 grand a week, pay 50, 60 million a player, and we go and challenge. We're not that club, though, Sean, are we? At the moment, we're not that club. And that's why when I see people going, I'd at least like us to bid for, I keep using Vardy, I'd at least like us to bid for that.
It's irrelevant, isn't it? We're never going to break the wage structure. It's one of the things that in the research I've done, looking into that whole Paratici, Juventus, Marotta thing, the consequences of signing Cristiano Ronaldo on a free transfer and paying him whatever it was, 500, 600 grand a week over there.
Yeah.
What that did to all of the established players knocking on the door saying, hang about, he's on 600 grand a week. I've been here for 7 years. Time to show some loyalty. Like it fucks up the entire balance of the ability to bring in revenues and then try and stick to like a 60%. I think it's maximum under the new FFP rules. I think it's max 60% of your, I might be wrong on this, but of your revenue can be used on like a wage, on your wage cap. So, I don't think Tottenham are in the position to be able to pay 400 grand a week for one player, because if then what happens to Harry Kane? He's going to want to be boosted immediately. Then so will Sonny. Then probably Romero. Now he's a World Cup winner. He'll want a boost. Bentancur and the kind of disaster spiral happens. I think it's pointless talking about those players. But what I do think, sorry, Sam, before I pass you back, I'd love it just before we move on to the right wing back. Why don't you put a poll out to see how everyone feels about certain players, whether Harry Maguire or if they prefer to have Hincapie over such and such. Like to see what the general kind of vibe is in the chat today.
I will do that in a minute. Just quickly before we do that, everyone in the chat right now, let's just concentrate on Harry Maguire. Everyone in the chat, just a simple yes or no, Harry Maguire. I've got a feeling I know what I'm going to see here, but look, guys, there are centre backs everywhere, right? And I think it's all about scouting. And for me, I think I want to see us do like what Leicester have done, the likes of Castagne, the likes of Fayez. When they got Kante, they got Mahrez. I know people will say, look, we're above them. Of course we are now, but those sort of signings, I want to see a player that comes in and we go, yeah, that was brilliantly scouted. David, I'm going to start with you on this. And just quickly, actually, before I do that, there's 190 of you in the chat. So thank you all for joining us. Please smash that like button. Please subscribe. I'm on the hunt for 2,500. Get to Sean. I think he's on the hunt for 4K. And get to David, who's on the hunt for like 100K or whatever David's on now. I don't know, some massive number. So please subscribe to everyone's channels. David, a few people have said this in the chat. So I'm going to bring this up. And I think I saw you shaking your head to this. Now, Juranovic of Celtic, a player who, let's be fair, we all probably, you might have seen him more than others, I don't know, but again, I don't watch Celtic and Rangers a lot, right? He's had a fantastic World Cup, but tell us about him. Is he one of those players who's just had a good World Cup but not good enough, or should people be circling him?
No, look, for me, I actually had this conversation with Jacko there last week. I think he's one of them that's had a good World Cup, and you always get them players that appear at the World Cup. But look, I'm not going to sit here and say I watch every game Celtic plays. I don't, but I do watch a lot of their football. I like the new mantra they have. I've always liked Celtic from a young age with the Irish connection there. Every Irish man likes watching Celtic. We'll always get behind Celtic. And for me, I'll be honest, I think he's one of their worst players in their starting 11. I don't think he's as good as everyone's making him out to be. And for me, I would actually stay clear of him. Again, you're bringing him in. It's a big risk. Is he better than Matt Doherty? I'm not so sure. Is he better than Emerson? I don't think so. For me, I think he's just one of them that's had a good World Cup, but I would actually stay clear if I'm being honest.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, guys? I mean, Sean, as someone who's watched the World Cup, I won't go to coup for this. I mean, look, if you were just didn't know anything about who he played for or anything like that, he has had a very good World Cup. Lots of people talking about him, but lots of people I know, like David, have also said, "Oh, you don't want that guy." So we don't want him. Who do we want at right wing back, Sean? Who do we want on that right hand side? Because it can't be Doherty and Royal forever, can it? Or can it?
No. Well, for me, well, I mean, who knows? My first choice though is probably either Melee from Atalanta. I think he, because I love his versatility. I love the fact that he can play on the right and on the left quite comfortably. And listen, Conte likes to invert the wing backs, and I think it doesn't. We've tried inverting the wing backs before, and it doesn't really work. So it'd be nice to have someone that can pivot to both sides. Pedro Porro is probably my number one choice, because I just think he's a more complete kind of all-rounder of a right wing back. Although I absolutely acknowledge that he doesn't fit the mold of a Conte kind of player. He's a little bit too lightweight. And I'm just saying this. There's I think we've got 3 yeses, and I think even one of them was saying it in a hell no, but let's say yes.
And one of them is a Chelsea fan who's like, I can understand why he want Maguire to go to Tottenham. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so
if there was a United fan saying, "Please take him."
There's maybe 3 or 4 yeses. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, Borodin saying no, and Thrice no, not a chance.
Got to read the room. Read the room on this one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Peter.
That means it's coming.
Yeah.
Peter, get the splinters out of your backside, my man. Come on, it's got to be a yes or no. Yeah, sorry, go on.
So Pedro Porro is probably my number one choice as an all-round competence. I think he's just class technical player. I think he just gets up whipping finishes. I think he's excellent. But I also think Melee as well from Atalanta is a really good fit. I don't really want Denzel Dumfries, but I think that he's probably the most likely to come in, because not only, Inter Milan probably want to get rid of him, but also I think he fits the mold of a Conte type of player. He's big, physical guy, but I don't think we're going to have too much success. I think he improves what we have, but I don't think he's that good at all. And so that's probably that's probably what we're going to land on, really. I think
it is. I mean,
yeah, cool.
God, I was just going to say, Kuva, have you seen too much of Dumfries? Because Sean and I have had this chat quite a lot. That I've seen Dumfries have some games where I thought, "Oh, you're good," and then I've seen him have multiple games where I've gone, "Oh, you're not good." Again, surely at this stage, Spurs need a listen. They don't need to be a 9 out of 10 each game. For me, I want someone who's a 7, 7.5, 8 every game. You know what you're going to get. No mistakes. They'll go forward and do your job. They're good defensively. They don't have to set the world alight, do they? They've just got to be solid, Kuva.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways I have to look at it, because I have to look at it what's Conte likely to want.
Right.
And it's entirely different to what I want, because he's going to want the powerfully built, athletic wing back, can get up and down the pitch, can defend, do the lot. And I don't give a monkeys about that. I want to see talented players with a lot of pace that are going to make it very exciting when we attack. That's the part I'm looking for. Dumfries is not that for me. He's the Emerson Royale that can score you a few headers at the far post.
Yeah,
I don't see anything special about him.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, Seb Shah, you didn't answer my question though. Notice what you've done there. I've asked you a question. You just come back with nah. He's embarrassing. Tell me why. I don't know. Cody played for Wolves for years, who were always very good defensively. What's embarrassing about Connor Cody when you've got Davis, Dyer, Sanchez, Rodon, Tanganga? I don't understand it. I'm echoing.
Oh, no, you sound all right to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I can just hear myself. Sean, you got me echoing. I can hear myself. It's frustrating me. Anyway,
I was just going to finish off. Juranovic, isn't it? The Celtic wing back. Yeah. Fortunately, I do get to watch Celtic and Rangers quite a lot because quite often Sky Sports will show them on as the Saturday midday kickoff before the proper football starts. Yeah. And nice dig there. But he is not one of those players that stands out. I remember a few years back, Southampton picked up Van Dijk and you think, yeah, that's a player. Yeah. They're going to get somebody there. Or Wanyama, you also thought, yeah, he's a destroyer. They'll do well there. Juranovic, nah. He's what, 20, 28, 29 already, something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not the sort of Croatian that typically comes over to Celtic as a young player and then makes his mark because he's got some talent all along. He seems to be coming into the game late in this. I mean, if I remember rightly, I've got to vaguely follow Espanyol just purely because of Pochettino and it being his first managerial club. And pretty sure I saw on one of their websites that they're being linked to Juranovic as well. So that's the kind of caliber we're talking about, that Espanyol are eyeing him up.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, David, I think the key thing, like what Kuva said there, how he started that comment was spot on. What we might want as fans, like a lot of fans are, give me Pedro Porro. He's slight, he's quick, he gets forward, he can attack. And then you hear, no, this isn't what Conte wants at all. He wants big and strong and powerful, which is probably why, in theory, he likes Royal. In theory, I say, but. Yeah. Do you think we need that big? I know it's what Conte wants, but do you think we need that big, powerful wing back, or for you, would a Porro be a bit better in terms of that attacking intent? Because I don't see many right wing backs that are actually like units. Most of them are quite nimble and can beat a man. And what do you reckon?
Look, for me, I think if you look at Conte signings overall since he's been here, the majority of them have been 6 foot, and that's why I ruled out the Pedro Porro one on my podcast. And look, I don't mind bringing in these big, strong, physical guys because it means we won't be out battling. Anyone that comes up against us is going to be a hard day. You're going to have to work extremely hard. Yeah. Look, for me, I think you could definitely get away with bringing someone like Pedro Porro in with the rest of your team being 6 foot, get him in there, good on the ball, good going forward. But look, if that's not what Conte wants, I don't think we will see him. But I think there's a couple of youngsters. I know people don't want to hear it. I know it hasn't really worked out with Jed Spence, but I like the likes of Livramento at Southampton before he went and got his injury. He's playing some good football. I know it was that right back, but if you're good enough, you could play a right wing back as well. Good going forward, as a goal in him, big, strong guy. Someone like him, I wouldn't be opposed to being brought in here. But look, I really don't think the Pedro Porro one will happen because he's not 6 foot, unfortunately.
I agree. I mean, Sean, are you in agreement with this? That this started with Kuva basically saying that, what we might want as fans compared to what Conte wants for his style. I mean, me personally, I'd love to see a tricky right wing back that, gets forward but he wants powerful players, right? Which is probably why we're going to end up with Dumfries. If we end up with Dumfries, how disappointed will you be, Sean? Or will you be? And what sort of fee do you think he's going to command, or Inter are going to command for him?
I think they will command. I think that if they could get rid of him for 25 to 30 million euros, I think they'll agree. They'll probably ask, because he had a somewhat decent World Cup, they'll probably ask for 45, 50. But in reality, I think that they, they're in financial problems as well. There's only two clubs in Italy that aren't in the red, and that's Atalanta and Fiorentina. Everybody else is on a spectrum of bad to awful when it comes to their finances, and Inter's up there on the wrong end of that scale. So I think they'll take 30 million. Would I be disappointed? I'd be disappointed. I don't know how you find space for another right wing back until you let go of someone. We've already got 3. Right, and if it was, I'd be okay with it if we did a swap deal, Emerson Royale for him plus 5 million or something like that. Then I think that's a way where you can recuperate most of the money that we probably wasted on Emerson Royale. Although from what I've read, Emerson Royale is not short of suitors. I think maybe because he's 23 years old. A lot of clubs seem to. I think he's 23.
What do they want him for, John? To be a footballer or like kit man or cutting the orange? What do they want him for?
I think they want to sign his social media guy, the guy who creates those clips. They put that guy is not getting paid enough money to be able to put together his everything, his best bits of every game.
My theory is a lot of clubs during COVID have just sacked all their recruitment staff, and they just ring up one helpline where there's a kid on that 17-year-old kid with Football Manager open, so you can do the search settings. I go, there's your player.
Yeah.
He's 18 in the areas.
Yeah. He's 20 at heading is Emerson Royale.
Just so you know, in 5 minutes, we're going to move to a subject that's going to be really controversial about some of our existing players. Just before we do, Seb Shah, I asked you to come back. Brilliant. Okay. You kind of answered, but not really. We've been heavily linked with the likes of Bastoni. All right, great. We're heavily linked with the likes of Bastoni, but as we said before, Bastoni don't want to join. Bastoni's going to cost 70, 80 million, and Bastoni's going to have other suitors that are going to pay him probably what he wants, which will be in excess, I'm guessing, of 200k, right? So, great. I'd love a Bastoni, but again, it's not realistic. Milenkovic, I agree with you. We should be going for Milenkovic, right? Kim Min-jae, great. How much is it going to cost you to get Kim Min-jae now? Why is Kim Min-jae going to leave Napoli when they're 8 or 9 points clear at the top of Serie A? So again, you've given me one that I think is realistic there, which is Milenkovic. So again, I'm all for better than Conor Cody, but I just don't think we're there as a club at the moment to buy those players like Bastoni. And I think it showed that last summer.
Yeah, I think to be fair to Seb, when he said it's embarrassing to be linked to Conor Cody, yeah, it is. We want better, don't we? We're just the realism bit.
Though? I don't know what he's done wrong. Why is it? He's a very good centre half.
Because we're constantly being linked with all the players that are like, supposed world class or £100 million transfers. So there's the expectation is there, but then the reality kicked in. That's the embarrassing bit. Is we're not in that bracket, and we're going to sign much cheaper players than that. So we've got to shop around a bit.
I agree. Well, welcome Phil P to the show. Phil, I'm going to come to you in a minute. Lovely hat, lovely jumper. Kuva, I get that, but the thing is, when fans say things like we're linked with Bastoni and Gavardia, we're linked with everyone. There's a difference between being linked. We could be linked with Lionel Messi. It doesn't mean they're coming. It doesn't mean they're realistic, right? So for me, I look at players that have done it, players that have done it in this league for year in, year out. I just feel that where we're at, Conor Cody absolutely walks into
here's the thing, Savva. Two things. Are we an elite club?
No.
Do you think most fans think we are?
Oh, for sure they think.
That's why.
For sure.
There you go.
For sure, but we're not.
That's why Conor Cody is embarrassing to a lot of fans, because the expectation is that higher level. It's just simple as that.
Kuva, I completely agree. Let me bring in Phil on this. Phil P, big up to yourself. Hope you're well, my man.
Hi, Phil.
Are Spurs? Here you go. Let's do it. Are Spurs an elite club, Phil? Let's be really, really honest. Take our Spurs hats off. If you had 100 football fans from around England sitting down, sensibly talking, would they come to the conclusion that we're an elite club?
Well, first of all, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone in the chat. Good evening, Sean, Kuva,
mate.
The Irish. Good evening, and obviously Savva. Good evening.
Thank you.
Look, I think, as you say, most Spurs fans I can't take my Spurs hat off, obviously, because otherwise I'd have horrific hat hair, like another two gentlemen on the show might as well. And it's Christmas anyway, so the Spurs Christmas hats on. Look, I think because of, and going down Sean's sort of boulevard now, because of the money we're earning now, and because of the history of the club, and because of the revenue we can bring in, I think we've got to be considered on the cusp of being an elite club. And obviously, look, whether people like it or not, the fact that we were invited to be in the European shambles Super League, is a sign that other people, i.e. Real Madrid and the other cabal, thought that we were as well, means that we're on the cusp. But I think that's actually what makes the whole thing so annoying, that we're think we are. We're not a million miles away, but we.
Apparently,
there's, every time sort of.
Phil, are you there?
It's got an elite connection.
Phil, I mean, you've got to pay some elite Wi-Fi, my friend.
Absolutely. You know what it is? All my money goes on Spurs merch and my season tickets. I'm propping up the regime, basically. So I can't really afford Wi-Fi. But I would say anyone that's worried about the cost of living crisis, if you buy some knitwear from Spurs and a Spurs Santa hat, you'll basically be the same temperature as a botanical garden. Okay, so if you're worried about feeding your kids and still being able to go out for a pint every now and then and toast Lionel Messi and the rest of the crew, just buy some Spurs knitwear and you'll be absolutely roasting.
Nice. You pop your Yorkshire puddings down here and they'll be done by Christmas.
It's probably still cheaper to feed your kids and go on the booze than it's to buy Spurs merch, isn't it?
Listen,
you've got to speculate to accumulate, Cooves, haven't you?
I'm going to bring you in here. Just before I do, Seb, again, mate, listen, you can keep telling me we aspire to be a top club, but the top players don't want to join, because until we break that wage structure, until we start winning things, there's a lot of things moving there. Kuva, this here, right? I mean, yes, it's from an Arsenal fan, but is there a degree, or is this factual that we want to talk about being an elite club, but can you be an elite club that hasn't won anything for 15 years? Can you be?
You can. I think to be an elite club, you've got to be in that bracket where you are genuinely contending for those trophies. If you're getting close, like finishing a point behind the league leaders one season, you've been in a proper title race, haven't you? Runners up in cups, it's on a regular basis. That's knocking on the door. The longer that run goes on, of course, the further away you're getting from it. Eventually, you're going to have to start looking at trophies to say you are one of the best clubs in that country. If it doesn't happen, you're failing, aren't you? Whoops, going to trigger Sean on that one again.
I'm coming to Sean next. I mean, Sean, you've been an advocate of winning trophies doesn't equal success, which is fair enough.
No. That's not what I've ever said.
No. Hang on. Let me get my point out. But you have said before that winning trophies isn't the only metric for success. Right?
I said not winning trophies does not necessitate failure. Massive difference.
Fair enough.
Massive difference.
But does not winning trophies equate not elite? And I'm not talking about, we haven't won a trophy for 2 years. Like, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, they might not win a trophy for a year, but they'll be back.
Yeah.
We've won 1 in 22.
Yeah.
Would anyone other than Spurs fans consider us to be anywhere near elite?
West Ham.
No. Yeah.
West Ham.
No, they're massive. They're massive.
Everywhere
West Ham are massive.
Everywhere they go.
Of course, if you want to be, tagged elite, there's certain things you have to have, and trophies is a core part of that. So 100%, it is. But I just want to quickly just mention something to you guys. I was doing my video today. I'm actually going to record it tomorrow morning instead. But are you guys aware that if the numbers are true from memory back in May, when that £150 million tranche injection of cash came down, we've only got 13 more days to take the other 50 million, and if we don't, then it gets sucked back in to Enix's coffers. And on that basis, I think if that was to happen, then the statement of intent that we were looking for in January, I don't think we have to wait until January to see if Tottenham have any intentions of stepping up and doing things in January. If they don't take that 50 million quid by the end of the year, I'm 98, 99% certain it's the end of the year, because there's 3 ways you can look at the end of the year. It could be end of the calendar year, end of the financial year, or end of the tax year. But I'm pretty sure it means end of the calendar year. And so
on that, I wanted to ask you about this, because this was something that I thought of as soon as they said the timescales that the 150 needed to be drawn down by. I always thought, well, it's pretty shoddy timing that it's because I think originally they did say the end of the calendar year, which obviously is pretty much a second too early to then spend in the January transfer window. Not that we're going to spend anything, of course. We'll do, the back of a fag packet deal on the last possible moment of the January window.
Yeah,
and
we'll sign Benson and Hedges then, won't we?
Yeah, exactly. You haven't got to spend the money. It's just in case of whether they've identified that they want to use it, and if they do, then it will get taken into Tottenham's coffers. If they say no, then there's 50 million quid that we could have taken that we didn't. And I was thinking to myself today, like on that basis, even the staunchest of Levy defenders, you'd probably categorize myself in that bucket. At that point, if we don't take it, and it's true that it gets sucked back in, the PR, all of the people that are Levy out are going to be screaming from the rooftops that I told you so. These guys are arseholes, blah 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 blah. There's no defense for it in my opinion, because why would you not take the 50 million quid and then spend it and add it to whatever we've got saved up in the bank from the decent and put it towards something spectacular in January? Because 50 million isn't going to touch the sides anyway. You need probably double that. So if it doesn't happen, for me, there's a massive problem, and I think that we'll know before the clock strikes 12 on midnight whether or not Tottenham are going to do anything meaningful in January.
Sean, I don't want to rain on your parade, mate, but I'm just warning you. You might get a phrase in the mud.
Yeah, I know. Of course. I'll be. Yeah. Funnily enough, my YouTube channel will go into hiatus for the rest of the winter.
Just a Spurs talk show bingo card. As long as we go on to your show and it's got in the mud somewhere, you've got a great chance of getting a full house.
Also, when you're saying that, there's 3 end of years. There's the calendar end of year. There's the tax end of year. There's the seasons end of year. I believe Tottenham also have their own independent.
Yeah, the financial end of year as well. Yeah, the financial.
Yeah,
end of year.
Is that October or something?
No, June the 31st is the end of the financial year, but they usually report it on November the 23rd, which they haven't. Right. Which to me is why I'm like, why not? And if you remember back, here's the I was sitting there today thinking, what possible justification? If these guys are completely blinkered or absolute morons, they'll sit there and they should be able to recognize the bad PR that looks like when they've offered it, but they haven't taken it out of there. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul anyway. Why would you not do it? And then I went back and looked at the numbers and the valuation that they put on the 150 million, because of the way that the shareholder agreements are all put in place. They already own 75-80% of the company, but there's obviously 20% of minority shareholders. If they took the full 150 million, then it would dilute the minority and increase these guys' percentages by 2%. So if you do some very simple rudimentary mathematics, that values the club at 7.5 billion, which is fine if you're someone who's trying to prop up the valuation of a company in the hope that when you go to sell your company, you can say to the person who's looking at buying it, look, the last time there was any real kind of tangible metrics of how to value, it was at 7.5 billion. But where they've come a little bit unstuck is ever since that thing was released, Chelsea's, that the amount of money that the Bowler Group paid for Chelsea was about half that, somewhere between 3 and 4.5 billion. And if you look at all of the reasonable metrics on how to value a football club, for me, it's negligible between Tottenham and Chelsea, because the stadium that we have that they don't have is still done on debt anyway. So you'd wipe all that out of the way. But everything else in terms of the brand valuations, the squad staff, the playing staff, the salaries, the income, the revenue, all of those things are pretty similar. So I think that they've shot themselves in the foot by pricing their valuation so high. And then they now don't want to have to dilute their own money by paying twice as much for the extra 50 million than they would otherwise have to do. I don't know if that makes sense, if I'm rambling here, if I've lost anybody. But
no, it does completely make sense. I mean, there's so much to this. I mean, David, I want to bring you in here. First of all, I'm going to ask you a question off the back of this. Pete, thank you very much for the super chat. On the subject of elite, Dave, he said, we don't act elite, we don't buy elite. Now, let's be fair, even the staunchest of Levy supporter, I don't think anyone could argue with that. We don't act elite and we don't buy elite on the pitch, do we? I think we act elite off the pitch. The stadium is elite. The training ground is elite. Our soap provider and our paint sponsor, it's all elite. But on the pitch, is Pete right?
Yeah, look, I think all you got to do is look at over the last 3 years since Pochettino's reign came apart. You know, you would argue most clubs around Europe were looking at that. 1 to 11 that Pochettino had, and since then it's completely fell apart. Have we done enough quick enough to be able to rectify it? No. You look at some of the signings brought in under Jose Mourinho, Rodin, Session, Bergwijn, people like not elite signings, in my opinion. But what I will say is, I think you'd probably put us in the top 10 clubs around Europe, maybe top 15 clubs around Europe. But I think what separates us from like a Real Madrid is the trophy cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think everything else is in place. I just think it's the trophy cabinet that probably separates us. I think we're elite, but I think other clubs are super elite.
I mean, I'm gonna.
Spurs fans are elite as well, by the way.
I'm gonna put this out there. This is gonna be one that sparks some conversation after what happened yesterday on our WhatsApp group. So I've not read all of this. I just literally read the first sentence, and I think the thing is, Jonas has said when elite clubs want players, they get them. Look at Chelsea, 110 million on Nkunku. I don't think it was 110 million. I get his point, right? Is that if these elite clubs, the Man United, they go, we want Anthony, bang. You know that Liverpool or City or someone this summer will go, we want Bellingham, bang. Isn't that the difference, guys? Phil, I'll come to you first on this. Isn't that the difference that these elite clubs, they want a player, they go and make it happen, no matter what they've got to pay, no matter what salary they've got to pay, they go and get it done. Whereas Spurs, we're linked with the Bastonis, we're linked with these Skriniars, we're linked with all these players, but ultimately we always get the next echelon down. Would that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the most annoying things for those of us that are old enough to remember the previous regime. Two away. Scholar almost sent the club bankrupt. Famously, obviously, we all remember that. But not that I'm not saying that in a fear factor way. You know, the whole but Levy's done this, and we don't want to end up like Leeds is absolute. You know, the worst sort of panic, sort of. You know, whatever it is. Anyway, whatever. But
fear mongering.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like the worst possible case. Like, don't leave the house. You might get struck by lightning and get run over and kidnapped by a paedophile. All in one go. You know, one of those would be bad enough. But we used, Scholar, to be fair to him, we used to go out, look at Gascoigne, look at Lineker, Waddle. These were statement signings, elite players. Unfortunately, back then, we'd sold off loads of good players like Goff, Hoddle. You know, we never kept a good team together long enough. I mean, Lineker's spoken at length, hasn't he, over the years about, I was really looking forward to playing with Gaza and Waddle. And we signed Lineker, one of the best strikers at the time, best finishers, and we sold the best winger that we probably had, in a generation. So, but we always used to go and just get deals done, just put the money on the table. And that's what you've got to do. You've just got to turn
literally
up.
the polar opposite of Levy, wasn't he?
Exactly. And
because
the worst thing is,
everything went wrong.
We've got the money, haven't we? We should have the money now, and it's just the pontificating and the registering interest. Once you hear, I don't know if we do. I don't know if
all that money's all that there, Phil. Like, if you're going to pay 90 million quid, Tottenham in 2018-19, after our best ever year in the Champions League, when we went deep and got all that money coming in, we only turned a profit of 80 million quid. Which is half a world-class player.
Absolutely. But we still, Sean, we've got the record, haven't we, of the most profit ever made by a football club internationally. Like,
can I just
maybe, I don't know about that. Maybe.
Phil, I'll let you carry on.
Why are we making that profit?
I just want to interject and back up your point there, Phil. The thing for me, and like Sean, you jumped in there on that. The thing for me is that we spend money, right? Like in this last window, what was it? 150 million, depending on who you're adding in and who, right? The window when we got Ndombele and Lo Celso, we spent money. The problem for me is that, like this window just gone, it's spread over 7 players. Rather than going, right, do you know what? Let's use that 150 million. Let's go and buy 2. Let's go and buy 2 that come into this team, elevate the team, both start in the first 11, and we go, yeah. Then the next window, 2 more. What we do is we get 150 million. We spend it on 7 players. We do this regularly, not maybe 150, but we regularly do this. And then fans go, manager was backed. And it's like, Well,
whose fault is it? Whose fault is it for misappropriating the money? Is it Daniel Levy, or is it the string of directors of football that we've had over the days?
Well, this is a great question, Sean. That's the thing for me is I want to see not so much in January, in the summer. I would like to turn around and go, okay, right, we've got £150 million war chest, which isn't a war chest these days.
War chest FC.
We bought 3 players, 3 50-minute. It doesn't have to be 50 each, but you know what I mean. 3 players, bang! They all went in the first 11, made us better.
Here's the thing, though, Savva. I think after the Champions League final under Pochettino, I think we tried to do that because we brought in an end on belly here. We tried to go big, tried to say, okay, Spurs are here. But we didn't do our homework properly into the background of the player, because if anyone did, you would have questioned, okay, well, why have we bet Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man City to this guy's signature? They all obviously checked the background to this guy and said, oh, I don't like this. We're going to walk away. And Tottenham ended up with him. And by doing that and getting it completely wrong, compiling it with other transfers that were brought in here by Steve Hitchen, it set us back. And I think we're kind of getting back to the point where when I look at that squad now, I think we can go in the summer, or maybe, I think this summer, I think you can look at this summer and you can look at getting in a 60, 70, 80 million pound player, get them in here. I think you're back at that point where you can do that now. But unfortunately, it took so long to recover from that end on Belly deal.
Yeah.
But
because everyone last summer was saying we need, all the way through last season was saying we need 11 new players. It's not just about improving the squad or improving the first team. We need to lift it like the rising tide lifts all boats. And we've gone out, I understand you saying if we'd gone out and bought just 2 cracking £80 million players, we would still have a completely fragile, weak bench. And if anyone goes down injured, we've got absolutely nowhere to go. So there's a balance.
I still think we have anyway. This is the problem. Look what happened. Kulu and Romero were out injured, and straight away it was like, oh my God, does Brian Hill start? Oh my God, Sanchez comes in. Right? For me, I get what you're saying, David, but again, if you look back to that window where we signed Lo Celso, Ndombele, Jack Clark, and Sessegnon, they were the 4, right? Now, bearing in mind, one of them at the time was bought on loan, right? Lo Celso was bought on loan. So we had the big signing in Ndombele. Then again, 2 kids in Sessegnon and Clark. So it was 2 kids that weren't bought for the first team. And then a bloke on loan who may or not have signed. Again, for me, I get it, guys. I get it that you've got to have a squad. I get it. But for me, all we seem to do is get a squad that's there or thereabouts without actually addressing the key components of the 11. But
this is the time to do it now, though, Savva, because whoever you bring in now on that money, you ideally think they're going to walk into that team. So whoever's out there who is good enough for Tottenham, they then get relegated to the bench, and then hopefully it creates a bit of competition. But I think we're at the point now where we can start doing that again. I think we tried on Rendon Bell. I think we tried to go out and go, look, guys, we bet Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, we're here. But we just got it completely wrong, and it takes time to bounce back.
Yeah, but Dave, it's big. It's big as well.
We made 8 million profit, and we spent 60, 65 of it on Ndombele. You know, it takes.
Don't forget Davinson Sanchez before him. He was our record signing, wasn't he? At 48 million quid, and look at an absolute donkey he was.
But the thing is, guys, we do what the big clubs don't. This is what gets me, right? Is I could guarantee as soon as I said what I said just now, the first thing people were putting in the chat was Ndombele, right? I get it, but this is the difference. Chelsea, City, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Newcastle will start to do it. They will buy a player at 50, 60 million. That player doesn't work out. And in the year they go, this ain't worked out. See you later. Right? At Spurs, we then use that as an example. Bearing in mind, Ndombele was bought 4 years ago. We use that as a reason to, let's not try it again because it didn't work.
There's other factors as well, mate, like the COVID, the pandemic, inflation, the cost of living.
All the other clubs had this.
I don't think that turned Ndombele into a bad sort, though, did it?
No, but it meant that it's incredibly difficult to be able to get any money back, right? Like, are you...
What isn't the biggest problem?
Name me a club that spent 100 million quid on a player, and then Savva, to your point, said within a year they went, okay, fuck it, this ain't working out, and then sold him for whatever price they could get. If it meant 10 million quid, I can't think of too many.
Yeah, but although
Timo Werner, for a start.
Well, Chelsea are a great example, though, aren't they? Because although the wheels is slightly changed now, obviously, because the Roman or the guy who pretends to be Roman Abramovich has taken his show down the road. I will stick to my guns. I think the bloke that we all think of as Roman Abramovich was just a patsy. He was a bloke who was paid to pretend to be Roman Abramovich. The real Roman Abramovich played up front for Chelsea in a Shevchenko face mask and many other because that bloke wasn't Shevchenko. It wasn't him. Every Chelsea forward that has come and couldn't hit a barn door was actually the real bloke. Yeah. The real guy in a face mask. But no, the thing I was going to say on a serious note about Chelsea is an example of a club that constantly goes out and buys really good standard of player, really top players. And that's why whenever Roman just played, musical chairs with managers and just dusted someone out because, basically he hadn't won 2 games in a row, the next manager would come in and guess what? He opened, his toy chest and thought, Jesus, there's loads of good players here. I can play whatever formation I want.
It's fairy tale stuff. Like Tottenham, Roman Abramovich had to write down £1.3 billion of debt that he gave to the club. Of course. Our owners aren't going to do that, and I don't.
Yeah, but Sean, the biggest problem is, I think the most heartbreaking thing is, Levy, more through luck than judgment, had chance on a really good formula. He had Mitchell and Poch, and he had them together, and we were buying really good youth players like Ali coming in, affecting the thing, and really good players like Toby were coming in on, cheap from Atletico via Southampton. And, look at the team we assembled on a relatively small budget, all within a very strict wage structure. And we were really doing the business, what every fan would want to see. A bit like what the Gooners are doing now, God forbid. But the problem was that relies on continuing that pipeline, that conveyor belt,
getting
of bringing
it right
in talent.
Of the time.
And the issue is, and the biggest problem with Ndombele, Ndombele was like the natural successor to Musa. But the problem was we bought him 6 months after Musa had moved on and about a year after Musa had stopped being as effective as he used to be. But the difficulty was we'd actually switched conveyor belt off like 2 transfer windows before that. We self-imposed a transfer ban. Chelsea were doing everything they could to get out of their transfer ban. Levy self-imposed one because he was busy picking taps. He couldn't decide how long he wanted the bar.
You're cherry picking the story to suit the narrative that Daniel Levy's a bad guy.
No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, though, he had a system that was working, Sean.
Yeah.
And he
made mistakes in that period.
He dismantled it. He got rid of Mitchell, and ultimately he switched the taps off, and that's why that system broke. So, and also I want to add into that, the difficulty was by the time we were in the stadium and we were willing to pay, the 50 to 60 million on players, whether and none of them worked out, unfortunately. But the time we were then willing to pay that, the actual transfer market had moved on, and those players, the players that could affect things, had gone up. But the difficulty is, look, Man City, okay, we all talk about the ills of oil money in football, but Man City, although they've spent a lot of money, they haven't spent as much as some other clubs, but they've always spent smart. They bought players in that really nice bracket, and a lot of the players we were linked with, weren't we? Diaz and the like. But
they have spent a lot of money. I know they spent slightly less than Manchester United.
We haven't bought smart, Sean. That's the issue.
I 1,000,000% agree with you on that summary. Like every time Tottenham have gone big, we've gone stupid. We spent a fortune on 4 or 5 players that have all been absolute shit shows for Tottenham. 100% agree.
Guys, we'll come back to this. We're going to completely continue this debate. Just quickly, Philo, 123. It's saying again, Savva, why do you need to go for big name players all the time? Dude. When have we ever gone for big name players? I'm just saying
Kulusevski's a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters in that name, isn't there? That's a big name.
That's true.
Lengthwise.
Right. But
4 or 5 consonants.
I'm not saying Philo 123 Coys that you shouldn't be picking up gems. I literally said this earlier on in the show, guys, didn't I? That I want us to be able to pick up gems like Fayez, like they did with Kante and Mahrez. But the top clubs that win things, they don't
Big up
do it.
Philo, by the way.
They don't just pick up gems, Philo 123 Coys. So Man U, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, all the clubs that have won the most in the last 20 years or in the Premier League era, yeah, they'll pick up some gems, but they're not winning things by picking up gems only, are they? They're as David said, they're sprinkling their team with that stardust, that quality, and that is what I'm talking about, Phil. I'm not talking about world-class players. I know we can't sign them, but at some point,
I want to add something else in, though.
Go on.
We all worry about the recruitment, and we all would agree for whatever reason. And even when we've gone for a different style of recruitment, look, when we sold Bale, we bought loads of players for smaller amounts, and basically, except for Ericsson, they all crashed and burned, right?
Yeah.
And it took us ages to get Coco out of the squad. God bless him. Another player that excelled in shithousery, world-class shithousery, elite-level shithousery.
Yeah, it got him a little cult following, didn't it?
It did. You know, I'd love to stick one on and badmouth Jack Wilshere, you know, and he got to do it in front of all of us. So God bless him. But why do so many players, when they leave the club, go on to win trophies?
That's slightly flawed, though, because you're talking about Cameron Carr.
It's flawed for us, Dave. It's flawed for us.
To Rangers. Like, there's a lot of players in there that have gone to less leagues and picked up trophies, and we're adding that in to suit a narrative. That's
no, but he's talking about sorry, I might be wrong.
A Modric or Bale I'll accept, but I'm not accepting a Cameron Vickers or a Defoe that's gone to Rangers
or an Kudu
Premier League. I'm not accepting that.
Yeah, but Boateng, look at Prince Boateng, couldn't even get in our team, won an FA Cup against us for Pompey, then went to Milan, and Iggy will love him because he was doing the moonwalk and doing Michael Jackson impressions at the San Siro after they won the title. Unbelievable.
For me on this recruitment idea, when we're talking about getting so many players in, needing so many players to fill the squad out, I'm not for that. I've always thought a club of our stature, we should be aiming at 2 world-class players, and if it means we're left short and we've got to fill out the bench with youth team players, so be it. They are going to improve their game by having those world-class players with them and training every day. We're going to get benefits to the younger players. You can't
100%.
raise your game to an elite level by buying average players, but you can reach that elite level by buying elite players and then hoping the rest are dragged up to their level.
Kuva, can I just say, you are spot on. 2 of the biggest players, I think, that moved the club forward in their time. Look at the effect Klinsmann had in that one season. But the other one, I think a massive turnaround in the Levy era was when we signed Edgar Davids. And that, I think, actually kick-started into the Yole era then. And that's when we first started to actually properly compete for top 4, and the effect he had on everyone, it raised the level because that guy was elite, and his whole mentality changed. I mean, you only have to look. You touched on it the other day, Kuva, when you were talking about players in the Premier League era. Klinsmann, just seeing his warm up, it was just another level. Things that players are doing now, the guy was doing 20 years ago. It was unbelievable, you know. So I would be all for if you go. And did anyone else notice this transfer window? It's something that teams like Rangers, Celtic have done in Scotland before, and Man U used to do in England as well. You know, we went to Brighton and we went to Everton and we got their best players. Now, how well they've worked out, obviously, you know, mixed results so far, but there's something to be said in that because they've got league experience and hopefully it will see us in good stead. But if I've got no problem with going and buying the best young players, but you only have to look at the World Cup. There's enough quality players around the world and around Europe and that need a chance and would come to Spurs. But I think one of the things we've got to understand is, and it's hard for us to take, and I'm the most one-eyed Spurs fan that you'll find, but you've got to sell them the dream. Like Modric, come here, prove yourself, and you're putting yourself in a massive shop window. And hopefully you'll do it with us. But if you don't, go off to Madrid, just like Modric did, just like Bale did. You can have a great future. The thing I'd be saying to Maddison now, if we actually wanted to sign him, is you come to Spurs and you'll be an England starter. I don't know why it happens, but we are seen as better than Leicester. And if you're playing for us, you'll get more chance in the England team. We must have nudes of Southgate as well, or someone deep in the FA. Because whenever we have players, they play for England. No idea why. But there you go.
I mean, us and Liverpool, isn't it? Seem to do that.
There's
Liverpool, because they're good players, to be fair. But
there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, Sean. On that point, it's difficult, isn't it? Because depending on who you're speaking to, depends on where they want to vent their kind of anger at Tottenham Hotspur within the club. Whether it's going to be at the succession of managers that there's been, whether it's going to be at the succession of directors of football, whether it's going to be at Levy, whether it's going to be at recruitment. But it just feels like nothing changed. I don't know. Maybe I'm different. I just still feel, like I said to you guys yesterday in the chat, I don't feel like we've still changed our stance on how we move forward with signings. I feel like we're still doing what we've always done. And like Phil said, there's so many good players. The World Cup has proved that out there, players that would come, but it feels like we do the obvious option every time. And I feel like we did in this window just gone. Am I being harsh in saying that, Sean?
Well, I mean, look, the same people who now demand, and this is not aimed at any particular area of the fan base, but the same people that now are talking about, like, why didn't we sign Kim Min-jae? They didn't want him when we had the 4 opportunities to buy him before he was a player. Look at Sofiane Amrabat. Now people are saying he's a great player. Now Liverpool want him. Why can't we go and get a player like Sofiane Amrabat? January, we spent all January window talking about it, and those people were rolling their eyes saying, typical Levy signing. Why can't we go out and get someone better? Like they want their cake and eat it. Yeah. And for me, I think that the other, I think Tottenham are in it's a weirdly difficult position to be when you're just about on the cusp of being able to compete.
2 players short FC.
Exactly. But the players that you want, that to Cooper's point, that are elite, are going to cost you money that this club at the moment, I don't think has quite got there. Or we'll find out whenever the figures come out. But I think that, just with the onslaught of all of the different economic situations around the world, because I think that it's difficult to go and buy those players and compete with, because whenever one of those becomes available, all of the bigger clubs want him as well, and we don't have that same attachment or same draw. And then the other players that we can go and get, most people don't want, and the fan base are never happy anyway. And then sometimes they come in and turn it around and do a good job. Sometimes they don't. But either way, I think the other variable is that, and this is where I 100% think that Daniel Levy and ENIC need to have a better approach. You mentioned, when I asked you the question earlier, tell me a player that has been signed for 100 million quid and the club has just gone, let's cut ties. And I think someone put Lukaku as in Chelsea. And that's a good, maybe that's a great example, right? But I mean, it just looks awful, horrendous business. But for me, Tottenham, I think, hold on to the valuations of players. They don't necessarily take a realistic approach and look and say, if European football was in the financial dire straits that it is, if Italy are at the verge of going bankrupt, a lot of the Spanish teams are the same. The German teams don't necessarily want to buy too many players from the Premier League. Then your market of potential suitors to come and buy the players that you no longer need is a lot smaller if you maintain the valuations that are close to what you paid for them. And I think sometimes you have to shake hands with the market and say, I think you do. I think you, and so I don't know whether all English players or players that here necessarily want to always up roots and go to other areas, because if they do leave and go to European football, you look at the very best Italian players or the players that are playing in Serie A, most of them are on half the salaries that the Premier League can offer them. And so if those players are on 100 grand a week or 80 grand a week at Tottenham, and we don't, like Harry Winks, for example, I don't know what he's getting paid, but he's probably getting paid 70 grand a week. Is he really going to want to leave unless he absolutely has to go and play for 20 grand a week, which is all he could command in a different league? So I think that there are consequences of the economic situation that I think are just the reality of the situation. And I think that Tottenham need to shake hands a little bit more with that, and then price themselves in a market where they can attract more buyers for the players.
But Sean, do you think the pontification, like we talked about how slow we are to actually get deals done in terms of incoming, I think we're as bad on the outgoing as well.
That's what I mean.
That's why I had such high hopes for Paratici.
But all he does is loan players out. He doesn't. He's very good at loaning players. Very bad at selling players.
But I think maybe that's because of the depressed market in Europe. Yeah, Shawnee, do you know what I mean? But
not only that, it's the attitude of some of the players we're trying to get rid of as well.
Oh, of course.
You know, it's a risk for a club to come in. It's right after a pandemic. If money is tight, why are they going to come in and splash out what Tottenham want for them? Yeah. If there's a risk that is going to go the exact same way it went at Tottenham, we also have to take that into account.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely.
But to be fair, life's wages, the inflated wages on mediocrity as well. I know, I know some of you like big fans of him, but I mean, take Brian Hill, 90 grand a week, is it something like that?
It's insane. It's
and
insane.
He's barely out of his nappy.
And who bought him, Cooper?
Yeah, Paratici, and I think that's what, when I was doing that kind of research about his whole history, you know, it did kind of make me go, holy shit, this guy is very like spendthrift, or sorry, that's the wrong word, frivolous. He's very frivolous with other people's money. And when he likes to have a deal, if he's got that power to go and impose himself on a deal, he'll do it and pay silly money. And I think one of the guys in the comments mentioned not just the Ronaldo guy. Who's the English guy or the Welsh guy that went to Juve and was getting paid $400? Ramsey. Like, that's a Paratici deal, right? That was a Paratici.
Shambles.
Yeah. So Paratici needs to get a little bit more sensible with his organising of deals, I think.
That is true. But for me, it feels like, I get it, and you know, with the pandemic and what's going on across Europe, but I still feel that other clubs managed to get this sorted. I feel like we've had some of these players for so long that at what point do we cut ties? Whether it's going to
other clubs are having these issues. I think we just feel it more because obviously Spurs is close to our heart. Arsenal have had it with Beppe, Ozil. You know, how many players?
But they didn't. Arsenal got rid of Aubameyang, Ozil, there was
but Ozil had been hanging around like a bad smell for a long time, mate, and so had Beppe.
But true.
Do you know what I mean? It is difficult. But what I'm saying is, we see it ourselves.
Hang on. Ozil was on like 400, 500 grand a week or something ridiculous. We haven't got players on, you know, all right, Ndombele's on 200, but the rest of them, the Winkses, the regular.
I think Winks is on about 80 grand a week.
Who gave him 80 grand?
But the problem is no matter what they're on, whether it's these guys, like, you know, apparently Ndombele on 200 plus grand a week, and Hill on whatever he's on. But it doesn't matter whether they're on 20 grand a week. The difficulty is, and whatever, even if they're youth team players that are coming through, even Tanganga now, for him to go to Italy, you're talking about these players might have to take, all of them might have to take pay cuts to go, but the market is so depressed now. It's a little bit like the problem poor old Kane's got. Kane might have been able to manufacture a move to City when he wanted to go, but no one could come in for him. A lot of the market depends on lots of teams like ourselves registering interest and creating a bit of a pressure to the team that actually wants them. But there was no
what we have to understand is, though, Phil, is someone like Kane is a sellable asset. You see the value in him. But players that we've been trying to get rid of, yes, and we're guilty of this. Spurs fans put a value on them. I've heard about Winks, 20 million, no problem. But there's a difference to what a club thinks the value of in the player is. Like we all said, Winks will get Premier League. He'll get a lower Premier League team, this, that, and the other. It didn't happen. It's gone out to Sampdoria. It still hasn't worked. And we're guilty of this. We've got we've had some real dross over the last few years, and we slap price tags on them, but it's not what other people see in them. Like I was saying to people, you might think there's a good player in Harry Winks, but if you're a manager, you're no one in world football, no good manager that's worth his salt in world football is going to sit there and go, I've got a ball playing problem or I've got a defensive mid problem in midfield. Harry Winks is my answer. And we're guilty of this. No matter what we think they're valued, other people don't see it. And unfortunately, if you're selling a player, you have to hope that there's someone out there that sees that value that you want for him. But in the world of football, world outside of Tottenham, a lot of people don't see that value. But look, why would they? When they produce some of the worst results, some of the worst performances we've seen in a Tottenham jersey in years gone by.
No, David, I completely get that. I agree with you on all of that. And look, it's going to be a long road. It's going to be a long road.
Just quickly, guys, I don't know if this. Sorry, Sam. I don't know if this is actually like how accurate this is or how up to date it is. I do remember seeing that Ollie Skip used to be on 15 grand a week. I don't know if he still is, but that's that's a bit comical. But how about this one? If you are Rodrigo Bentancur, and if it's true, you're getting paid 75 grand a week, and then you look above him, and Brian Hill is getting paid 80 or 90, or this Fraser Foster's getting paid 75 grand a week to sit on the bench. What the hell?
See, free contracts, though. Free contracts, they're a bit different.
But also, Shawnee, what you've got to remember is if you're bringing Hill in, like we paid whatever it was, best part of 30 million on top of Coco going the other way, he's going to be on about 90 grand. And everyone thinks now with the history and the bad blood there is between a lot of us fans and Ndombele. But if you're bringing in a player for, whatever it turned out to be with all the add-ons and different things, but the best part of 65 million record club signing at the time, he's going to be getting a top whack. You're not going to bring him in and have him on 40 grand with the rest of the deadwood. So the wages go in line. But the biggest thing we have to do, we have to start scouting better. And we do have to bring that average wage up. Then we'll have a better squad. It's not rocket science, but we do have to scout better. Yeah. I don't know how we do that, but we do have to scout better.
I just want to make another point as well on the reason why we find ourselves in this predicament where these guys are on big money, they're here a long time and the value isn't there, so we're having to loan them out to try and hopefully it pans out well, so that boosts the value of the asset we're trying to sell. But another part of that is the way we've handed out contracts over the years. If you look at Harry Winks, nearly every 2 years for a certain period of time, that guy was getting a new contract. But for what?
Yeah.
For what?
Same as David Dyer.
Like Dyer's rumored to get a new contract. What does he deserve a new contract for off the basis of this season? We just hand out contracts too easily to try and protect.
Yeah, but Dave, you know where that takes back to?
We hand out the contracts to try and raise their transfer value so we can bring in as much as we want. Fine, I can accept the reasoning behind it, but it's got to be calculated. You've got to look at a player and go, okay, if we hand this guy 70, 80 grand a week, he's going to be here for the next 3 years. Is his transfer value and the way this guy is progressing going to be like that? And, we don't do that. We just hand them out to keep protecting a transfer value that's not there. That's why a lot of it, we're in this position.
Just quickly before we go on, I completely agree with you. Just really quickly. First of all, guys, there are nearly 200 of you in the chat, so thank you very much for sticking with us. Please subscribe to the Irish Hotspur Spurs Talk Show. Free Spurs Boys with Kuv and the Kang. Phil P, I don't believe he's got his own show, but just follow him on anything. Just search for Ric Flair videos on YouTube and just enjoy it. There we go. Ric Flair videos. And please, of course, subscribe to myself, Savva Talks Football. Hopefully we're giving you not just football debates, but we're going a bit deeper into the club's finances and the history of the club. And please smash the like button, you tight people. There's nearly 200 of you and only 80 likes. Guys, I want to move this on a little bit, if that's okay. And I don't know if anyone needs to go, but let me know if you do in the private chat or if you need to go now. Speak. And I think we need to warm up for the 24-hour one, mate. Warm up for the 24-hour carry. Let's do a quick 12.
I need to go fairly soon because I'm going to have to get some food before doing the stream later.
No worries. So listen, I'm going to run on until 10 o'clock. So if everyone's cool, if not, right. I've seen a comment in the chat that I really wanted to talk about, and I know that this is so polarizing for Spurs fans. Now, first and foremost, it was the super chat. So thanks, Azad. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So Azad has said this, guys, and we saw this earlier. He said, how can we say Harry Kane is world class when he can't do it under pressure? Look at Mbappe and Messi tonight. That's the level of world class. Now, guys, I'm going to put this out to all of you in a minute because this is very different. First of all, I'd like to just chip in and say here, for me, I think, as we've talked about loads of times before, the term world class is very different for all of us. Second of all, for me, I think it's handed around like candy. I think people just want everyone to be world class. Secondly, I think the problem is, Azad, and thirdly, is when comparing Kane to an Mbappe and Messi, I think we're talking about complete different levels. As much as we love Harry Kane, I can't put him anywhere near them in terms of anything, if I'm really honest. Sorry, anything. In terms of finishing, pace, power, skill. I don't put him in that bracket. That's all I'm going to say on this. Who would like to go first? How can we call Kane world class when he can't do it under pressure?
I think Dave needs to go first on this one.
David, go.
Let Harry Kane's biggest fan come in here, my man. Right, so for me, I think he is world class. I think he can spray a ball around like De Bruyne. I think he finishes just as good as anybody across world football. Plus, a lot of times this season, especially without Kulu, he's too good. He's dealing with two players coming in, bouncing off him every time. Look, for me, I think he's proven with his numbers down the years that he's world class. If he wasn't world class, Bayern Munich, Man City definitely would not be looking at him whatsoever over the last couple of years. Now, I'll put out a video after a penalty miss, and I actually think it's going to benefit Tottenham, but I also think it's going to benefit Harry Kane. Because what I think separates Harry Kane from a Lionel Messi or an Mbappe is not actually the football ability. I think it's there. It's up here. It's the mindset. And that's crucial. You look at a Ballon d'Or winner. Bar maybe a Ronaldinho, who was absolutely just gifted. I'm not even sure if he won a Ballon d'Or, but like most of them, they all have that elite mentality. You know, where it's been built in them over the years. They have that drive. They have it. And for me, I think with that penalty miss, and I think Kane will go off and look to maybe go and get someone to help him mentally. I remember listening to Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand talk about when they done it at United at the time, and it helped them improve their performances, deal with the pressures, which helped them on the football pitch and stuff like that. And I think, and I believe Harry Kane will do that because he got that Canadian doctor in to help him, and that's why he's barely been injured over the last couple of seasons, because he flies this guy in to help him out. So he puts all the places, all the other things in off the pitch to help him. And I believe that mentality is probably just the last piece. And once he gets that, I think Harry Kane will go on. I believe he'll start delivering in the big moments when they come around, because the argument against Harry Kane is when the finals have come around, where has he been? Now that for me comes down to mentality, because he's a serious player. And I just think once he gets that mentality shift, I think you'll see him take that next step, and I honestly believe he will deliver trophies to Tottenham because of it.
I mean, Sean, look, nicely put, David. Look, again, for me, I'll caveat this, Sean, by saying I think that the term world class, it means different things to different people. The thing for me, Sean, is I think it goes into brackets. So for me, if we're calling Kane world class, I just
echelons.
Think yeah. I think Mbappe and Messi I don't think Kane can be put in there in the sentence with them. If I'm honest, I feel he's the next level below, because what you can say is in a game like tonight where France weren't in it at all, and it's not just tonight, throughout the whole tournament, Mbappe picks up the reins and runs with it. Messi's controlled a whole team and a whole nation for however long. Is it that the fact that we're trying to lump players like Harry, we're trying to lump the term world class in with players that are even far beyond that? Or does Harry Kane belong in the sentence with players like Mbappe and Messi?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think it depends how broad of a category or broad of a of a swimming pool you want to allow room for other players. For me, I would say, like, if the answer to the following questions are yes, then he's world class. And those questions would be: does he walk into 99% of the teams in world football?
Yes.
Will he end up being, in all likelihood, absent, going away? Will he end up being the person with the most amount of goals scored? This is obviously specific to a striker, but the person with the most amount of goals scored in the league that is probably recognized as being the most competitive and most premium league in the world. And if the answer to both those questions is yes, I think you immediately put him into the world-class category, because remember, we're talking about world-class players. This idea of you being him not having trophies kind of spoils the broth for him. Trophies are a team game, right? Generally speaking, unless you're talking about golden boots or Ballon d'Ors, but trophies are a team game. And I don't think Harry Kane's should be pulled out of a world-class category because he has played for a team that has struggled with that final element of the pie. So
just quickly, Sean, one to the chat and then a question back to you. First of all, people in the chat, by the way, I see a lot of people talking about Kane missing a penalty. I'm not basing this on Kane missing a penalty. That is human. Players miss penalties. This has nothing to do with it for me. Right?
What, Kane missed a penalty?
Yeah, he missed a penalty. I don't know if you heard. It was a week ago or so. Sean, the thing for me
a week ago.
the thing for me with this, Sean, and I'll come to you after the Phil, is I get it. It's a team game, but But those elite players that we're talking about, for me, when you put in the world-class bracket, yes, it's a team game, but those players are the ones that drag you there, right?
Yeah.
And what we witnessed today, right? That World Cup final was insane. Essentially,
it wasn't amazing.
A great performance by Argentina, but Messi stood out head and shoulders above the rest. And Mbappe does those amazing things in moments. What's leveled at Kane is
he's not there. Yeah.
He never produces moments like that in the biggest of occasions. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
But the biggest occasions that Tottenham have been involved in over the last, let's say, 5 years, where I think he's emerged as the world-class player that he is because those numbers stacked up. He was injured for 3 months before the Champions League final. And even though I don't agree with him being rushed back in, he wanted to play. That mentality of I've got to play. And because of the weight of his reputation and his name at the club, put Pochettino in a position where he said, if you want to play, if you're telling me you're good, then you're in. Same thing happened in the Carabao Cup final. Now, if you want to go back to semi-finals and things like that, then you can look at the specifics of the game, who he played against. But I don't think it's fair to judge Harry Kane's performances 100% on those two major finals for us in recent years because he was
not
playing
the finals.
I know
It's not the finals, though, is it?
I know.
And it's not the Spurs. And this is the thing. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, right? The thing is, if you look at all of the big games England have played, whether it was semis, finals, and you think of the last 3 tournaments, right? And then the semis and the finals for Spurs, we can all look at injured this that in all of those games, and we're probably going across 10 to 12 now that fit into that bracket.
Yeah.
When has he ever announced himself to the world and gone, do you know what? We're doing shit. I'm gonna provide that moment, right? The way that Ronaldo's done it for countless years wherever he's been. Messi's just taken a good Argentina, but not a great Argentina, and won the World Cup. Mbappe is Mbappe, right? I'm talking about those moments. When has he ever, I'm playing devil's advocate, right? This isn't me. When has he ever turned up? And that's a valid point, right? When?
Yeah. Go on, Phil.
But then you can say that about a lot of great players we've had in the last, say, 30 years. I mean, we've had a lot of players that haven't won anything at this club.
Or for England, though.
Turned up in the final.
Plenty of world-class players for England, that haven't done it for England on the big occasions,
But I don't think there are many world-class players that have failed. The problem is, for me, this is when I like.
Do you think David Beckham was world-class at the time?
I don't think Beckham was a world-class. I think Beckham was. No, he wasn't. David Beckham was a very, very good footballer who had a wonderful cross, a wonderful engine, and fabulous set pieces. At that time, he was nowhere near world-class if you look at the peers around him in
world-class PR.
World-class PR, for sure. And he's
you don't play for Man United, Real Madrid, PSG, AC Milan, and the top team in America.
Especially Real Madrid when they're in the Galacticos period.
Hang on.
If you're a big brand, maybe he wasn't a brand.
What Sean just said, he was the biggest brand in world football, right?
Yeah.
And that.
I still think he's world class, though. I'm with Dave on that.
I just think we hand out world class.
Yeah, but
way too easy.
I know you know the definitions. It's good, and I know you've talked about this before, Savva. I would say if you flipped it to another sport, if you were to talk about world class cricket as world class, topical darts players, I think as long as you're competing in the world championships at an international level, that for me means you're world class because you're internationally known, as the rap song goes. But in the end of the day, I think that means that sets you apart as world class. Obviously, then as we said, there are echelons within that. I think you can't really. I love Kane. I love Kane to pieces. You can't compare him with Messi. There's an argument now, backed argument to say he's the GOAT, right? And Mbappe obviously has got a phenomenal track record at such a young age already, and he's well on track to become, the World Cup leading scorer with how many goals he's racked up already. I think he's already on 14, so he's not that far behind you know, the likes of R9 and closer at his age.
Yeah.
Right?
Can we agree? Just because it all comes down to what you like, how big of a pool you want to allow world class to be. Is it reasonable to say? Because I take what you're saying, Phil. Like for the billion people that play football around the world, by that rationale, every single person who plays Premier League football is world class, or every person at the World Cup is world class. But in reality, if we're talking amongst the top players, who is at the very top? Should we say you have to be within the top?
Yeah, but
5
look,
players
I get
in your
that,
position in the world to be
I get that,
but,
and I get exactly. But I would say that almost elevates you to starting to talk about elite, or he's in the top 5. And I take Yo-Yo's point, right? I'm just saying, if you're an international, if you've gone and even if you've benched warmed for Morocco, right? The fact that you have led all throughout your life, right? You've become a professional footballer, so you're already in the top 1%. And then out of all the professional footballers your country's produced, you're one of the fittest, you know, you're fit, you're able to get on the plane, and you're one of the 2 best goalkeepers in Morocco, right? I think, look, it's easy for us.
That's not the definition, is it? Because
no,
otherwise,
I know, but I'm just saying.
Otherwise, we're calling everybody world class. Look,
but what I'm saying is that if you're that second choice or third choice Morocco goalkeeper, you're going to be putting that on your CV. It doesn't matter what you do in 30 years' time. You're going to be telling your grandkids about that.
But surely,
hang on. I think Phil's onto something there. We should be using this as a metric for players. You know, he's good, but can he play in goal for Morocco?
Exactly. And Kane could. Kane's played in goal for Spurs in Europe.
Second choice.
Like, could you put Messi in goal in the Europa League?
No, of course you couldn't.
No, you couldn't, because one, he'd probably never
be in the Europa League.
Exactly. There you go. I cross it in Beckham style. You head it in like Kane.
Guys,
I just want to say something. I'm reading Broden's comment here, but if you look at a lot of Mbappe's goal, he's set up by Messi, he's set up by Neymar. He's got 2 of his goals today were penalties. You know, like he's getting contributions from everywhere else. Has Kane always got them contributions?
Yeah,
the only thing I want to say though is there's a lot of players. Kane hasn't. Look, Kane has got that many goals. You don't get to level best goal scorer, but not best. Highest goal scorer, if you want to say that, of your country, and unless something very untoward happens in the next few weeks, i.e. a transfer out or bad injury, he probably will break the one of the best ever players, Jimmy Greaves' record for his club too. You don't get to that level without being pretty good. Okay, loads of people said he was a one season wonder, and he's been a one season wonder for 10 seasons running. So
Phil, that's not in doubt. But for me, where does the line get drawn? Because at some point, this is the thing. You've got to at some point you have to deliver.
Yeah, but it's deeper than Mbappe and Messi. Right?
Yeah, hang on. At some point, I'm not saying it's just Mbappe and Messi. But the thing is, if people are gonna put him in that bracket, he's got to be able to do at some point what those. I know I can use. Hang on. Phil, you got to let me finish. Let me finish. Right. It's not just about tonight's World Cup final. These two have been doing it in massive games for how long? And the thing is, Kane's getting to that stage now where at some point in those massive games, he's got to prove people wrong. Right. We can talk about him being set up, but at the end of the day, there are big players that don't get set up, that go and grab a game by the scruff of the neck and make something happen, right? Kane, for me, I love him. I think he's an absolute phenomenal finisher. But for me, whenever it's really mattered for England and Spurs, I don't see this performed, and this isn't about missing a penalty. I don't care about penalties. Yeah, you're either good at them or you're not. He hasn't. I don't know. Look,
Savva, I completely agree with that point. I would say in the pros column, right, for Kane, you've got to say the amount he scored, and also there are comparables here and sort of similarities with Beckham. I think if you look at his pace, his strength, all the things that make up a good player, you'd say, and this is what some of my Gooner mates say, like have slagged Kane off for the last 10 years, and they've always been proved wrong, except for the trophy thing, because he doesn't excel at anything except he has worked at his craft And he, you know, managed his diet, managed his fitness. As you said, Dave, he's brought experts in to help him on all sorts of different things. And he keeps ploughing away. Look, he just talked at length about the foundation that he started recently about mental health. He's talked about how he didn't think he was going to make it. He was on these loan moves and he wasn't getting in the team, wasn't scoring goals. And he thought,
Phil,
if I'm not going to score for Leicester...
Need to drop off, Phil. Coover and Dave need to drop off. Can I let them drop off and then we'll continue?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, please.
How much longer are you guys going for?
10 minutes.
Okay.
That's it. 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Big love, Dave. Big love, Coover.
Big love. Subscribe to these guys. Thank you very much.
You'll never beat the Irish.
Well, unfortunately, that's not true. We weren't at the World Cup, so
that's why we can't beat you.
That was for the human rights, though, wasn't it, Dave?
Huh?
That was because of the human rights situation, wasn't it?
No, we're just shit. Honestly, you get better every week. Honestly, I'm sick of going to the Aviva. It's like watching Shrewsbury Town or something like that. But look, Phil P, it's been a pleasure. Savva, Kuva, Sean, great discussion as always.
Cheers,
and I'll see you back on the next one, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy Christmas to everybody.
Happy Christmas,
cheers,
everybody.
Dave. Take care, mate.
And I'll be off. I'll be off too. But I'll quickly, if I may, I'll just do one last thing about this world class thing. I'll just say I'll put it in 3 tiers. World class, you can get into any team in the world. For me, then there's a great player. A great player can get into any team in the world in any era. But then there's the tier above that where you get the geniuses, where you are one of the greatest players that can get into any team in the world in any era.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about greatest of all time conversations. It's 3 tiers of conversation. World class is not that much ahead. I mean, there's loads of world class players around. They're players that perform at the highest level.
Kuva will have to disagree. I don't think there's more than 10 to 15 world class players out there. I think the standard has dropped considerably in the last 20 years of players. And I just think
that's what I mean. My theory, it's my way of looking at it. It's all relative to what there is at the moment.
Agreed, but that's why I never
subjective anyway. Must go, so I'll piss off.
See you later.
See you, mate.
Cheers, then, lads.
Cheers, Coover.
Guys, the thing for me, look, we're going to have a hard stop at 10:10, 9 minutes. The thing for me, guys, is I get it, right, and I know we all talk about world class meaning something different, but when people say to me, "This player's world class, that player's world class," at what point do they have to provide? At what point? You know,
oh yeah, sure. But I think the problem Kane has got is because he stayed with Spurs and because he's never look, you're absolutely right. All the things I said in the pro column for Kane, ultimate professional, you know, has done everything to maximize his potential. And you've got to admire that. You have to admire that. Whatever you think, he's kept proving people wrong. But except you're 100% right. He's never grabbed too many massive games by the scruff of the neck and got us over the line. But the only thing I would say, he did score. He missed a pen. People don't put this in the missed pen category, but he did miss a pen in the semi-final against Denmark, didn't he? Schmeichel saved it, but he put in the rebound. That was probably the biggest clutch goal he scored to get England into that final. Okay. But it was his, and I think you touched on it, Sean. For the cup final that we never like to think about because it's so painful in 2019, it was his job to get himself fit. And obviously then there's that political situation that many people talked about, that it was a political club move that put pressure on Poch to put him in the team. Whatever the truth was, it's Kane's job to get himself fit. Now, whether he should have played, you know, obviously, people can look on this with hindsight and have a conversation about it. But he played; he wasn't fully fit, but that's on him or that's on Poch, and he didn't do himself or the club justice. What were the other 10 players' excuses? What were they doing? So that's where it goes to your point, Sean. It's a team game. He hasn't done enough, so he hasn't done enough to help us, but he hasn't done then enough to counteract the argument, Savva, that you've put on the table. What have you done for me lately? You know, what has he done? What has he done to elevate? But the only thing I would also say, though, Savva, is the other clutch games that he can point to, or someone like me that would defend Kane to the hilt. he's also the top goal scorer in London derbies. I think all London derbies, but definitely the North London derby.
For
but
sure.
But also, there are footballs littered with players that didn't do it in the ultimate stage. Now, obviously, Messi scored in Champions League finals, etc. But look, that documentary on the BBC, a lot of it was about how the fans in Argentina turned against Messi because he hadn't done it for them. And in some of the biggest games for Portugal, Ronaldo didn't turn up. Henry, right? Henry, how many cup finals did he show up for Arsenal or France?
Yeah, listen, quite possibly. But
he stat padded massively against low-level teams. Hang on.
Well, he didn't massively stat pad against lower teams. There was one season where he scored against every single opponent he played against.
Yeah, sure.
This is a guy that also took his team to multiple titles and cup wins.
But he missed a few sitters in that final in Paris, didn't he?
He did. But listen, the thing is, if you are not, I'll bring Sean on this. If you are not winning trophies and you are not turning up in those big moments, and you've got neither of those things, and you've had multiple opportunities, at what point does it stop becoming an excuse? Because people say to me, "Oh, but he's at Spurs," but you can't tell me, or he's at England. But if you're good enough to get to those semis and those finals, it can't always be, "Oh, it's little old Spurs," because he got there. 100%. We were good enough to get there. England were good enough to get to quarters, to semis, to finals.
Yeah,
like in Italy. That's the sort of game where you want to see a performance like you saw tonight from Mbappe and Messi. Get the ball, create things, everything go through you. Doesn't necessarily have to score. Like if Messi didn't score tonight, Sean, right? That's fine, but everything goes through the man. Do you know what I mean? Everything good goes through Lionel Messi. Kane, for me, does that for Spurs week in, week out, not when it matters in the big games for Spurs and England. And I've not seen it.
I agree. I think that everyone agrees. I think everyone would agree on the basis that he's close, right? And the reasons why if depending on how big your bucket of world class is, he's either not got in or he's got in based on two things. You either factor in the fact that he hasn't won a trophy and that he doesn't turn up in the big games, and that can hold him back. Or you remember the fact that he's going to be Tottenham's greatest ever goal scorer, probably best ever player. He's probably going to be England's greatest ever. I think he already is England's greatest ever goal scorer, and he's probably going to be the Premier League's greatest ever goal scorer. And on that level, like he's very, very close to being put into the world. For me, he is the world class, but that's because my space in the world class bucket extends to about at least 5 or 6 people in any particular position. And I think he is at this moment in time in the top 6 or 7, top 5, whatever strikers in the world. I think most clubs he'd walk into, and therefore for me, he's world class because my bucket has room for 5, at least 5 players.
You don't have room for second choice Moroccan goalkeepers.
No, I don't. He's international class. He's international class. He's not world class.
I'm just saying, by the way, I'm not saying I'm just putting it out there as the argument. I think sometimes people misinterpret as a host. I think for me, Kane is in that bucket, right? Where you could say world class, on the verge of world class. For me, what I think is unfair is when people put him in the bucket with the Ronaldos, the Messis, the Mbappes. Because for me, I don't think they're in that world
who
class.
else then? Who are the other strikers that you would consider world class that are still currently playing football? Mbappe, Ronaldo,
Lewandowski, Benzema, Haaland. I'd put them all in that bracket.
You think Haaland is more of a world-class player than Harry Kane is?
No, for his age, I think he's on the cusp. I think, the fact that if he leads Man City to glory, if he breaks all these Premier League records, then possibly. But again, I love Haaland. But again, players for me have to do it year in, year out and start achieving. Yeah. So for me, that's what I'm saying. Up here, Ronaldo for me isn't in that bucket anymore, by the way. I'm just saying.
Yeah, of course.
Ronaldo,
he's dropped out.
I'm just putting him in there because of what's happened the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Messi and Ronaldo were in a league of their own. So when people go, "Oh, they're world class," no, they're not. They're ridiculous. Mbappe for me, the only thing for me stopping Mbappe being in with Messi is go and play in a proper league. Yeah. My mate sent me today a comparison of goals scored at this age. At the age of 23 between Messi and Mbappe. And what I sent back to him was, that's great, but Lionel Messi was playing in, at the time, the best league in the world. Yeah. Mbappe's spent 6 years of his, or first 5-6 years of his career playing in not such a great league. So I'm not knocking Mbappe, but for me, for him to join that echelon, as you said, Phil, he's got to go and do it. And I'm not saying he can't, but he's got to go and do it at a Madrid, at a Barcelona, at a Man City, he's got to go to a club that doesn't walk the league every year by 30 points because
Savva,
no one.
Can I chuck something in though?
Yeah,
and I think it's something Jan Vertonghen touched on once, because he said he wanted to stay at Spurs because staying at Spurs and doing it, winning something with his friends, as he put it at the time. And look, this is why you've got to respect Conte, whether you're tired of the football like you might have been, Savva, and I don't know where you're on this, Sean, but in the end of the day, Conte's come here, and I know it's a long shot, but if he was to do something, and like Kane, if Kane won something with Spurs, it would mean so much more, not just because he's a Spurs man and, man and boy, then woo, cheers, Danny. But because to win something at Spurs is against all odds because we're not there yet. Whereas he could have gone to Man City and he might have had 3 things in the trophy. But, it's one of those things where, well, what difference does that make? And
the class of the player doesn't change because he goes to Manchester City.
You're absolutely right. Look, Messi is Messi, right? Messi is Messi. But in the end of the day, it does help him. And this is where maybe he has found it harder to achieve, and maybe why Ronaldo found it harder to achieve with Portugal. He's found it harder to achieve with Argentina because although he had world-class players around him, it's not Iniesta, It's not Xavi.
I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that at all. He's not got that level of play. He's never had that level of player around him at Argentina.
No, that's what I'm saying, Savva. That's what I'm saying. So you can compete, and he can properly show all his wares at Barca because he was in one of the best club sides that's ever played the game, ever, in any era. But Argentina weren't quite there.
Yeah, but Phil, he has now gone and dragged an Argentina team over.
100%.
Listen, I'm not saying that Mbappe isn't one of the best players in the world. For me, he's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But in terms of legacy, right?
Of course,
when you look back at Ronaldo and Messi's careers, I know they're still playing, but when you look back at their careers, you're going to turn around and go, the elite clubs where the pressure. You've got to remember, we talk about this. What's his name? Piers Morgan. I heard him say yesterday that Messi had the safety blanket of playing at Barcelona.
Ridiculous.
Right? Safety blanket. One, the pressure on him to deliver every single game in every single competition. That's not a safety blanket. That is a huge pressure. B,
100%.
Would that Barcelona team that everyone says, oh, if it wasn't for Iniesta and Xavi, without Messi, what would that Barcelona team that dominated for a decade have done? Because this guy was getting 60, 70, 80, 90 goals a year. Of course. Right? So the only thing for me is...
Well, he helped elevate Xavi and Iniesta, didn't he?
Of course.
You're going to create more. You're going to be an assist monster if the bloke you're passing it to could beat 3 or 4 players and then hang it in the top bin.
Of course. But for me, Mbappe, his legacy at the moment is, what he's doing in World Cup stages is amazing. But for me, I still see
all I'm trying to say is I'm trying to chuck it out. If he wants to prove himself, come and join Spurs, yeah? Prove yourself.
Just go and smash the numbers Messi and Ronaldo smashed were unheard of, right? I think we all 3 of us agree on that, right?
Yeah.
They were unheard of. We were used to talking about 30 goal a season players. Messi and Ronaldo, if they got 30 in a year, you'd say, what a terrible year, right? The difference is Mbappe's numbers, even in France, he should be hitting 60, 70, 80, 90 goals like Messi was in a calendar year. But he doesn't. And I wonder whether or not that is because he is not challenged enough. Turns up in the massive games of the World Cup, but go and join a Madrid. He had the chance.
Also, as you're saying about Kane, do it at the business end of the Champions League.
I agree. I completely agree. This is the thing. And Sean, sorry, I apologize if you need to drop off, and feel free if you need to. But for me, that's the thing. The Ronaldos, the Messis, how many times they won the Champions League? Because when it got to the quarters, the semis and the finals, they went, all right, my team might not be playing great. Let me go and win it. Mbappe, for me, at the club stage, and we can't say he's playing with crap players because Mbappe is playing with Messi, Neymar, Verratti, Ramos, Hakimi. Go and do it. And I'm not saying he can't do it this year, but go and do it. Go and drag your team to win a Champions League. Yeah? Go to Madrid when you get the opportunity rather than staying at PSG. That baffled me when he did that. But it is what it is. Sean, do you need to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna crack on with some work before it gets too late, mate. Thank you for having me, boys. It was always good fun, a good time on a Sunday night. So good to see you, Phil. Do me a Ric Flair before you go, mate.
Woo! Listen, Sean, I'm glad. I know you still get a lot of heat for being Levy in, but I know you dip your toe in the warm jacuzzi water of me and Savva enjoying ourselves and our cocktails in the Levy out camp. So anytime you want.
I love the
put your budgie smugglers on and dip yourself in, mate. Come on.
Like I said, I might
be a beer and enjoy yourself.
I'll be waiting and seeing what happens if we don't take that 50 million quid. If there's not a decent explanation as to why not, then I don't know what message that sends. Apart from I'm going to be in the mud, I think so.
In the mud bingo card, mate. It's coming your way.
All right, guys. Cheers, Sav. Good to see you, mate. See you, Phil. See you everyone in the chat. Have a good
mate.
Yeah, see you soon.
Yeah, Phil. I mean, just to round this conversation off. Look. For me, again, for me. All I'm saying with Mbappe, for me, it was a real shame when he had that chance in the summer, and you're thinking, yeah, go to Madrid,
challenge yourself, yeah.
Go to Madrid and do Madrid what Ronaldo did there for nearly a decade. Go there, win multiple Champions Leagues, win multiple Ballon d'Ors.
Yeah.
If he wins a Ballon d'Or playing for PSG, it's kind of like, well, every week he's not tested.
Yeah, but the only thing, Savva, I would say, look, I actually agree with you on this, but as you like to do, I'm going to play devil's advocate. The only thing I would say is it does get boring when all the players go to the same clubs. And it's like the gravitational pull of football. In the end, he's a Parisian. He might want to, a bit like Kane, he might want to do it with PSG. And of course, look, there's only PSG could sign their own player for 300 million. Do you know what I mean? What a joke. Financial fair play, basically. I don't know what it's about. Where, like, it's a myth. And of course, look, there's a case to say with financial fair play, it is just another thing. Like the Champions League and the ethos behind why it was first set up, it's about centralising power in the clubs that are already the mega clubs. Because in the end of the day, the likes of Madrid and even Barca, who should have gone bust, both of them should have gone bust over the years. The fact that they're as big as they are and can sell as many shirts as they can and their TV rights as they can, the commercial deals that they can, they'll always get an out. Whereas if you're little old Tottenham Hotspur, or God forbid, Leyton Orient, how are you ever going to climb that greasy pole? If you can't, so financial fair play in a way is hamstringing people. But I actually agree. You can't just have the oil barons coming in and saying, "Bosh, here, let's buy your best players all the time."
That's the way it's always been. Players like Mbappe, players like Messi, players like Ronaldo, the world elite stars. These guys, they do play for those big clubs for a reason. They go to these clubs, they cement a legacy. And for me, that is the only thing. I look at Mbappe and think everything about him in 10 years' time, when he's 33, 34, we should be sitting here going, Jesus, this man has hit Messi and Ronaldo numbers. This man's got 6 or 7 Ballon d'Ors. I'm not saying he can't do that, but for me, it will always be flawed when it's at PSG. Yeah? So even if PSG go and win the Champions League, great. The players they've got, they should be. But for me, winning the league year in, year out, like if I bring up, right, I'm going to bring up Mbappe's stats, right, for PSG.
Will Stewart would be so proud of you right now, mate.
He would be. He would be, absolutely. So if I look at Mbappe, right, so Mbappe's best year, right, is 33 goals for PSG back in 2019.
Is that league or all comp?
That's league, right? For me,
great, right?
It's good. It's good, right? Like if you look last year, 28 and 35. 28 and 35, we used to go, whoa.
Yeah.
But Messi and Ronaldo changed.
Yeah, they changed the game. They changed the game.
So now you look at a bloke getting 28 and 35, especially in the French league, and I go,
yeah,
all right, you're a class player. But for me, that should be a minimum of 45 league goals and 25 assists because you are playing against, sorry, I know some people would disagree, you are playing against substandard teams. Now, when you go to Spain, when you go to La Liga, when you come to the Premier League, if you are putting in those numbers, I go, oh, yeah, that's quality. But
the only thing to play devil's advocate against Savva, I would say, if you look how many French players come over and play in our league who go around the world and achieve great things, look at the standard of the French international team, right? Okay, they haven't played scintillating football, but all great technicians, all of a great standard. Saliba, you know, whatever we might think of him, again, you know, I'm pretty anti-Woolwich.
Yeah.
But having a great season, doing the business, has had a few good seasons on the spin, couldn't even get in the team. So I think we fall into this trap sometimes of thinking the French league might be actually worse than it is. I was at Wembley when a team called Monaco came to town that we all thought we'd roll over. And I know, look, obviously with hindsight, we know Mbappe was Mbappe, Bernard Silva was Bernard Silva, and all these players have gone on to be great players. But but that's exactly going back to an earlier point you made. There's enough great players out there but we always buy the worst ones. And I get that. But the point is, let's be fair, right?
Yeah. He's not tested in that French league, right? Course. Because every year, right, there's not even a 2-horse race. I mean, if we look at the French league right now,
of course.
Right? If we look at the French league right now, already they've got a 5-point gap, right? They've got a 5-point gap after 15 games. The gap to third is 10, right? Yeah. They've let 9 goals in 15 games. They're averaging 3 goals a game, right? I'm cool with that. But look, I do need to end the show in like 60 seconds, but I'm cool with that. But it's only for me. If you want to be talked about like Messi and Ronaldo, you've got to do Messi and Ronaldo things.
Yeah. I just want to quickly ask you one thing, and I don't want to spark another hour-long conversation.
Go on.
Romero, how do you think he played tonight?
I thought he was good tonight. I thought he was very good. I thought in the first half, oh God, a few little rash things, but in the whole, he was very good. For me, if Romero can cut out that rash spark in him, bearing in mind he's still quite young for a centre half.
Yeah.
I think he will go on to have a fantastic career. And as I've said, I reckon in 18 months he won't be at Tottenham Hotspur.
To be fair,
I think he'll move on.
You haven't asked a question there, mate, but to coin your phrase, I'm not negative, I'm just asking questions. But look, it would show that he's doing something right. If he's being linked with top clubs in 18 months, it means he's doing something right for Spurs. Look, I think he's actually better with the ball than maybe he gets credit for. He does have a rash. I mean, look, that tackle he put in the semi, or near tackle that he put in at the start of the semi-final, if he'd made contact with a guy, in the attacking sort of half of the pitch, he could have gone off. But thankfully, he missed the guy. And even when he had a bit of an aberration today, and he gave away, took too many touches and put his mate in trouble, and they gave away the throw in just before Argentina's second goal, and what a goal that was as well. In a weird way, he even defended quite well. He sort of bought Mbappe as Mbappe sort of went round him, which meant he couldn't get to. So look, he did have a great. I thought he had a good game, a really good game. Had a lot. I think
he's had a great World Cup.
Well, after a shaky start, he was iffy in that first game, but he built on from there. But look, last thing I would say, mate, I just want to say massive respect to all the Argentina team, because obviously the narrative is, as you say, Messi, and look, full respect. He's really cemented his legacy if it needed. He was always going to be a great player, whether he won or lost today. But in a way, there's been a lot of talk about how much he's walked around this World Cup and he's conserved himself. But actually, Messi, he was putting himself around. He was running all the bursts. He was even putting in sliding tackles in extra time and things. And
he wanted it.
He wanted it so much, and he did. Look, I've questioned him a few times at international level how much he's actually been able to drag his team. And look, he definitely underperformed in that the final in, was it 2014 when they lost to Germany? He didn't really turn up in that game, but when he was the player of the tournament in thing. But look, he's done phenomenally well. So congratulations to Messi, congratulations to Argentina. I'm looking forward to the Spurs online content on when Hugo and Kuti meet each other in the canteen when they get back, because obviously he left one on Hugo at the beginning of the game, so that'll be interesting. But look, it was a great World Cup. I don't know what you think, mate, but that's got to be the best final. Maybe not even just the World Cup final, but best final I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've really got to go in literally 20 seconds. I agree with you. I think the thing is, I look at him, he's 2 goals short of the century for Argentina. He's won the Copa America. He's won the World Cup. He's won, 8 or 9 La Ligas, 4 Champions League, 7 Ballon d'Ors, this, that, the other. I'm just privileged that I've been around to watch his era, and I don't think I'm going to see another Messi I don't think I'll see another Messi in my lifetime, if I'm honest. I really don't. I know somebody might come along in a few years and I'll go, oh, but people constantly say the next Messi, the next Ronaldo, you've got to be special. But Phil, I have got to go. Thanks for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks for the super chats. Look, we'll be back. I won't be back next Sunday because it's Christmas Day, but I will be back on Boxing Day after our game against Brentford. So much love. See you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.